10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Prepare for vault door opening.
Hello and welcome to Vault 45, everybody. My name is Kismet. They call me Overseer Kismet. They also call me the artist. That's right. I've been an artist for 30 years, everybody, and this is a bonus stream. That's right. This is a stream on top of all of our other stuff that we do. We do play a lot of games, which you can see rotating behind me. I played every single one of these on stream, and a whole bunch more, as a matter of fact. But I've also been a graphic designer for 30 years, and I did promise you guys some graphic design streams, so we're going to get into the basics of it on how to get started with vector and pixel-based programs like Photoshop and Illustrator. We're going to talk about the basics of how to get around some of the tools and how I do some of my stuff and how you could do some graphics and how you could do your own graphics either using paid software like the Adobe Suite, or you could use free software. We're going to get into all of that tonight. And this one I've been waiting to do. Everybody's a combination of another graphic design one and this one. Just try to simplify it as much as possible to give you the basics overview and then let you rock and roll to go do your thing, very much like I did with 3D animation and other things I've done here on stream. So pretty excited about it. Now put a 1 in the chat if you can see and hear me. Let me go ahead and put you guys in right there. Now I am streaming live to 4 different platforms at the same time. Streaming to, of course, Twitch as my primary one, as well as YouTube, a Kick, and Facebook, all at the same time. I forgot to pop out my Facebook comments over here. Let's get these popped out. There we go. And let's show some love over there on Facebook as well. I very much don't use Facebook all that much, everybody, but, you know, I feel like, hey, you know, let's show some love over there too, right? Why not? Why not show the love in all the places that we can, bring a little joy and positivity into your day? And we're going to talk about the basics of design and all of that stuff. Now, currently, I'm in a program called Illustrator. Now, I'm actually on the PC, but all these years, for the last 30 years, I've actually used the Mac. And the reason why is that's what it was designed to do. It was the first to have type and where you could actually set the type in the machine. And of course had a lot of other graphic design things. Of course, Adobe started on the Mac as well, probably most known for a artist computer, and that's what it does best. To me, a computer is just a tool, like a wrench or a screwdriver, right? I use the tool for what it does and what it does best. Now, back in the day, of course, you only had one option, but now you have many options. I'm currently actually on the PC right now, so you can actually do it on the PC just as well as you can do it on the Mac or anything else. Now, there are some shortcomings to the PC still to this day, usually has to do with transparencies when you're copying between different things, or if you're trying to grab a single frame out of a movie or out of a video that you're trying to grab. So much easier to do on the Mac, everybody. It understands the transparency when you're going between Photoshop and Illustrator. In PC, you got to save it out and then import it, and you got to do all these workarounds. PC is like the Tonka version of the Mac operating system. Mac operating system is very beautiful, very elegant, but it lacks the expandability. It lacks the ability to dust your computer, which I find very annoying as well. One of the things I found about my Mac, I had to actually cut it open. And when I cut it open, I had to take this adhesive strips off to take the front off so I could dust the inside, because there's no drawer or any way to get to the inside of the machine. Except for these adhesive strips. And then I had it on there and it fell off and it cracked the screen. It still runs just fine. It's been going for 12 years over there. I'm not even using it. I got it off right now. I'm using my 3 PCs now to run the show over here. But it is a great machine for that, if that's all you want to do. Plus, there's a whole ecosystem around the Mac and graphic design, as well as around PC and graphic design. So again, the tool is irrelevant, and so is the program. I don't teach programs, everybody. I feel like that's the biggest mistake in education today, is that people go in and say, oh, I'm going to teach you Photoshop, or I'm going to teach you Illustrator. Now, don't go to those classes. Those classes suck. What you want to do is you want to learn the principles of design, because then the program is irrelevant. You can go to, you can go to Photoshop, or you can go to other programs and you could use it just as well. Like I could use any program. Doesn't matter. It just matters how many tools it has and how many functions it has to do what I want to do. as I'm going to show you today. The principles are what's most important. Color correction, having to do with color, proximity of stuff, using your type, using your images, using lines and shapes and textures and so on. All the basic elements of graphic design. And we're going to touch upon that. Now, right here, you're like, Kismet, what is this right here? Well, this is just a circle and a square. And that's all you need to start with, everybody. Just start with a circle and a square, and we're going to go from there. Actually, kind of rhymes, doesn't it? Well, let's say hello to everybody in the chat first, and then we'll dive right in. Boss Hog was here like 30 minutes early. Look at you go, Boss Hog. I love the Alf, by the way. I used to own a plushie Alf. And everybody back in the day, they had Garfields, you know, them stuck to their windows. I don't know if you guys remember that, where they had Garfields. Put a 1 in the chat if you remember that, when they had Garfield stuck to the window. So I thought the funniest thing was to take an Alf and put him stuck to the window, and then when somebody rolls up with a Garfield, there's my Alf looking at, because Alf eats cats. So he's sitting there looking at the Garfield, and the Garfield is looking at him. It was I got the most compliments from so many people. They were like, oh, you got an Alf on your window. That's awesome. Because I like to be uniquely different than everybody else. Everybody else has Garfield. Pfft. That's the same as everybody else. I like to do my own thing. Get my Alf up there. So yeah, great icon there. Love it. And Paul coming in as well. That's an artist for you, everybody. It doesn't need to be the same as everybody else. Paul coming in. What up, Paul? Foggy coming in. What up? Hey, Kismet. Great to catch the stream. Been following since Fallout Shelters Day. Yes, I saw you checking your thing. 8 years, 4 months. Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for the follow. You're watching my Fallout 4 playthrough on YouTube. Well, hey, I hope you are enjoying. I'm streaming to 4 platforms at the same time, and it's nothing short of a miracle, everybody. This is a lot of work, everybody. A lot of crazy work to make this stuff happen. Wombat coming in with the hype, getting it going right there. Massive hype going on. I see that. Thank you so much for all that follow love, Chris, and thanks for coming in and hanging out. Paul as well, bringing even more. Kismet Love Train in there, dropping the 1. Shred's got the 1 in there as well. AMZ bringing it in. 2 years of Love Train. Yes, there you go. Showing that love there. We'll play that here in my other stream, or my other screen when we get over there. Ice Go Killer coming in. Now, we're going to do a download. Now, of course, it's too much for me to download it all tonight, everybody. I got 30 years worth of knowledge that we could do this for 100 hours, everybody, or probably 5,000 hours. We could go and we could talk about graphic design, but we're going to shrink it down to just a few hours because I like to be to the point, everybody. I like to get to the point as quick as possible. That's Mr. 9, you coming in saying hello as well. Landrew saying hello. Hey, Kismet, what troubles have you been up to? I've been up to all the troubles. I've been having a great time in Starfield. Man, were we having so much fun yesterday. I didn't want to stop. We've been having lots of fun in Fallout 76, in 7 Days to Die, and I'm trying to get some city skylines in, but I was working on tons of stuff today. So we'll probably push that tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I don't know, one of these days. We're going to get to it. I did see there was a big update, so it's pretty cool. And I got a bunch of other stuff lined up as well, so pretty excited about it. Hey, Noah, what up? Yo, thanks for coming in, hanging out. Now, of course, if you are watching me on Twitch, hit the follow button. If you're watching me on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. You know what to do. If you're watching on Kick, same thing. Hit that follow button. And, of course, the first 50 people, by the way, on Kick are going to get the OG symbol over there. So don't forget to go to kick.com/Kismet. BP, by the way. B like Bravo, P like Papa. So Kismet, and then put a B at the end and a P because they won't give me Kismet. Someone took it. Such is the way it goes. And the same thing over on Facebook. Facebook is facebook.com/KismetBP. Like B like Bravo, P like Papa. But it really stands for Blood Pledge. Now, Blood Pledge is the name of what guilds used to be called 20 years ago. That's right. When I started my guild way back in the day, I called it the Kismet BP because we couldn't think of any other name, so I just used my name. And then it went on to be the biggest guild of all the guilds, which is kind of a funny thing, I think. That's how that stuff kind of happens, right? My guild's still together 20 years later, everybody, over 1,000 members strong. So pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. So I say, let's get into some graphic design. I'm going to download a bunch of my knowledge right to all of you. Let's go. All right. Now, of course, the concepts are the most important, all right? Now, doesn't matter what program you're using. I'm going to show you some paid programs. Right now, I'm in Adobe Illustrator. I've used Adobe Illustrator since 1988. Yes, 88, everybody. I don't even know how many years ago that was. Hey, Siri, How many years ago was 1988?
It was 35 years ago.
35 years ago, everybody. Some of you weren't even born. So I've used it since 1988. Illustrator is the greatest leap forward in any graphic design program at all, I think. One of the big leap forwards in Illustrator was the Bezier Curve tool. So I'm going to zoom way in here. Now, these blue lines here, these are guidelines. Probably going to be a little tough for you guys to see. But we're going to talk a little bit about those tools and why that Bezier Curve tool was so incredibly revolutionary for its time and still is to this day. It's the basis of just so many things in 3D animation, in 2D design, illustration, when you're doing masks and using Photoshop and so on and so forth. It's just a gigantic list of things. Now, of course, another thing that was introduced by Photoshop was layers. I used Photoshop before it had layers. It was 0.09, everybody. It wasn't even version 1.0. By the way, little side note of Photoshop, it was actually made by John Knoll. John Knoll worked in Industrial Light and Magic, and he wrote Photoshop. And then, of course, he eventually sold it to Adobe, and they took it and ran with it after that. So a little background knowledge on Photoshop. And I was there at the very beginning. You're welcome. I'm the one that gave feedback and suggestions and ideas and pioneered all of these things back in the day. And so what we need to do is basically understand the basic elements of design. That's where you need to start. Don't worry about the program and all the tools and all the BS that all those bad teachers teach you. I hate that stuff, everybody. I hate that stuff because I know that's the wrong way to go about it. The right way to go about it is to teach you what design is about. Design is about lines, right? Like this line here, right? We've got lines here. We've got lines over here, right? About lines is about shapes, right? So this is a circle and this is a square, right? And of course, you also have different things like your colors over here. So if you have your different color palettes, you can actually do different color palettes, CMYK, RGB. You can even go grayscale if you want. It's way over there. And so on. And they also have like the color wheel. Now, of course, I'm in RGB right now because I'm designing stuff for the web. So when you're designing stuff for the web, red, green, blue, that's your thing, RGB, right? That's for screen display. And then, of course, if you're printing stuff, that would be CMYK or cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And that's how they put down four-color inks on paper. So if you see a magazine, you pick up a magazine, well, guess what? They put some cyan down, they put some magenta down, they put some yellow down, and then they covered it up because black is a cover color, and they put the black down to cover up all those other colors. And then, bam, you got yourself a color magazine or whatever it is, right? Stickers or things of that nature. Now, it's come a long way since the printing age. Now they have digital printers and things of that nature that can use different color modes, even 6 and 8 color and even 16 color and unique colors that you can use throughout all of your designs as well. And there's times to use unique colors and there's times to use your CMYK or RGB colors. And those are just the color things. Now, there are different types of colors as well. There's primary colors, secondary colors, and tertiary colors. Very important to know. So if you have your primary colors, right, your primary colors would be along in your cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, that kind of thing would be considered a primary color. And if you take those two colors and you mix them together, like say we take this color and we take like a yellow over here. I'll go to my swatches. There we go. And we take a yellow over here. And then we mix these two colors together. What happens to those? Well, if we go into our opacity here, let's go find it way down here. What is it under in here? And gets appearance. There we go. So what we could do is go in and adjust. Oh, it's up here at the top. Its opacity, and notice that when it mixes together with blue in the two areas in which we mix it, that blue and yellow, what does it make? That's right, it makes green in the center. And that's the basics of color, everybody. You don't need to know more than that. That there's your primary colors, and then there's colors that you mix together, and then there's secondary colors, right? There's also complementary colors. A great way to find out complementary colors in programs like Illustrator or other programs is simply go over here to your swatches. And you can look and see if it gives you that option, especially under color here. You can just say, okay, show me the complementary color that goes with this. Now, what I mean is that a color that goes well with that color, right? So if we take this one and we say, okay, I want to see the complement, well, these two colors go well together. Same thing with yellow. What goes good with yellow? Let's go ahead and find those complementary colors. Nice purple and a nice yellow. See, they feel good together. But if you were to switch these around and have the opacity way up here, there we go, then you might not have good colors. In this case, they actually do go well together. But you can have colors that are really bad together, like red. And then, of course, you might have a green, say, for Christmas. Those are fine. But if I was to take some text and put that text in green on top of the red, it's going to do what's known as vibrate when you print that. That's not good, everybody. You don't want to put a really heavy green text on a red thing. It will start to look not so good when you print it. Not so bad on the screen, but not good when you print it. Same thing when you have a thing going over multiple colors. It is fairly hard to read, as well as different backgrounds. You can see it's starting to fade. See how the green is starting to fade into that blue because part of green is blue, right? So you're going to start to see it's harder to read if I put it on the blue background as opposed to if I put it on a darker background. Right? Now, of course, you could always put a drop shadow on it. You could actually change a color. You could put a stroke on it. You can do all sorts of things to adjust it, but that's the basics of color, and color is one of the basics of design. Probably one of the toughest things to get down, but there's a lot of things that will help you along the way to understand your different color. Now, also, there's using your various type and your type styles. Of course, you can see I have quite a few different styles. You have your serif and sans serif. This is a serif font. Serif font has these little things hanging down from the top here, right? These things are serif font. Now, why do they have different names for them? Well, serif font is more legible, right? So you want to think about your typography in that way. It's more legible. What if I do this here? Now, this is better for a headline, but you don't want to necessarily do all the text in there because it does make it harder to read when you're reading, say, an article in a magazine or in the newspaper or whatever. It's going to make it much tougher to read. That's why they use Times New Roman in most publications, because it's very, very easy to read, instead of using some super crazy font that is incredibly hard to read, like something like this in a giant paragraph. Or something even more crazy. I don't have even crazy fonts in here. Look at this. Maybe this one, little Twitch font. Imagine reading a giant paragraph of that, everybody. It would definitely holds up 5 fingers. This is old in 88. Yes, this one it started in 1988, and it's just absolutely revolutionized everything that we do. But that's a cool one if you're just doing a little bit of text, but if you're doing a whole paragraph, everybody, not a good idea to use fancy fonts. So, serif, sans serif, and this is actually called a headline font, which means that you're using it for your headlines, or kind of a fancy font, right? A fancy font where you're using just certain styles. Now, you can actually make your own fonts. That's actually one of the processes of Illustrator, and I've done it. Not only fonts, but also a whole bunch of different characters that you can use. Let's see if I can find some here. Where's my wingdings at? They're in here somewhere. Where's my wingies? Where are you hiding, wingdings? There you go. Now, these right here are illustrations that were done and then turned into a font. So you can just hit a letter and actually do those illustrations. So if I just keep typing, you can see that I'm just getting a whole bunch of different things because the letter F, and I'll go ahead and take all this back out over here and just put this in like that. If I hit F, well, F equals fire truck in this particular font, right? And I'm going to go ahead and hit O, and O equals a boat, right? So that's all that they did. They illustrated it, Then they took it and they turned it into a font, which I've done for logos, for designs, for stuff that we used to use all the time, especially things like when I used to do CDs, there's the CD label that you have to put on every single one of those. So instead of having to pull that file up every time, I just made a font. And so I made the logo, I converted it into a font, and then boom, dropped it in there. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do that. That's pretty advanced. But that's all that this is. This is just an illustration that's made to replace an actual other character, like the number, like the letter F or the letter O in this case. So if I actually change this to another font, you would see that it's actually just faux. The letter F and the letter O. It's the lowercase version of it, by the way. There are some things that are uppercase as well. Now, wingdings is something that comes with your PC usually, wherever they went. There we go, or webdings is what I'm doing. This is wingdings. There we go. Now, if you wanted to see these, if you notice over here on the right side, these are called glyphs. Glyphs are a whole bunch of different shapes, and I can just double click on stuff over here if I want to go in and say modify this and utilize some of this stuff over here. I can actually go in and use it and find the thing I'm looking for in there. Say this symbol right here, right? The symbol here we can pull out of there. And we can utilize it because this is here in the font. And I can actually convert this object by going to the path and creating an outline, or actually type. I can create an outline, and instead of it being a font, now it's actually a shape. So I can go in and I can change, say, the color of this, right? I want that to be blue. Now it's blue. Just as simple as that, right? Now, I can also go in individually and go in and grab this particular object, copy it out of there, paste it onto the front, if I want to. There we go. Or not. Come on, you. There we go. PC is very different. I'm pressing the wrong keys. There we go. Copy. Paste it in the front. There we go. And then just change that part to yellow. And you're like, well, Kismet, what happened to the little circle part? Well, that part is being cut out of the other part. It's called compound path. And so if I put something behind it, like say we take like a pink thing here, and we're going to copy this, and we're going to put it behind, you can see it actually shows through because that area is transparent, right? So to get that to do that, we can go ahead and hide an object. See, one of the coolest things about Illustrator is that hide function. It's pretty awesome. You can hide it temporarily. Then you can go and bring it back again. And then you can go ahead and then combine these two things together by going Control 7. And then you can, of course, make it transparent again just in where this part is, right? I think that's pretty amazing, everybody. I think that's pretty incredible on what you can do there. And you can also go Command Z to back it all the way up to the original, or even all the way back to where it was still a font. Because there is an unlimited amount of undos and a lot of redos. Now, certain programs have a lot of undos and some don't. All right, so we've talked very quickly about lines and shapes and colors, and also about type. Those are the basics of graphic design. And, of course, your various images that you would bring in and then work together. Like, a great example is my schedule that I do, right? These are a combination of shapes and pictures. How do you know? Well, I can actually go into a secret mode. If you didn't know, it's called artwork mode. If you go in, you can see this, right? But watch this. Boom! Now you can actually see the shapes and of the actual artwork itself. Anything that you see as a square, that is a photo. Anything that you see as an actual shape, like the Starfield logo here, that's an actual illustration done in Illustrator. Pretty amazing, right? Pretty amazing. You guys are getting to see behind the scenes of how that stuff is done. You can see here the Fallout 4 logo is actually made out of points and lines called vector art. Vector art right there. And the other one is called pixel art, right? Which is pixel art Photoshop, vector art typically in Illustrator. Though you can bring vector art into Photoshop and you can bring pixel art or photographs into Illustrator. So you can't put them in both. And just knowing what each of them are and what they're good for is the most important. And we're going to get into that here in just a bit. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and undo all of this. And we're going to get into the basics of all of our shapes and stuff. Actually, I'll just take all that out. There we go. Into the basics of how to basically get started in graphics. Now, the first thing I suggest that you guys would do is learn the Bezier curve tool. Now, in here, it's called the pin tool, but basically that's what it is. And so what I can do with the pin tool is I can click, and then I'm going to click along this line, and I'm going to click, and it makes a straight line. You're like, big deal, Kismet. Well, the cool part comes when you go down here, and I'm going to zoom way in on this so you guys can see. And then now you want to do a curved line. And this was the revolution, everybody. Normally you just be going click, 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 click. And that sucked. That sucked big time. Because it didn't actually define the curve of it. But if I click, hold, and drag, notice that I'm dragging in the direction that I'm trying to outline. If I go this way, it does this, right? You don't want to go backwards. You don't want to be going that way. You want to be going in the direction in which you started, right? You started at the top, you went this way, you went down, and then you're going in that direction. So I need to keep this going in this direction, and notice how it shapes itself around to match to that angle. Notice how you also get this kind of weird green cut through, and that's because I haven't finished going all the way around. One of the things that I suggest is that you don't have any fill over here. We can turn the fill off, and that you just do it as a line. I also suggest that you do your line as a black line because it's just easier to see, right? And we can keep going around here. Now, how far you should go is a matter of contention among designers. Now, I try to go like what I call a quarter arc. So if you have a circle like this, and you would go, say, 1/4 of that circle, and then another quarter, and another quarter. I find that that works pretty well, and then you can see that I can go ahead and make more shapes, right? So I can click, hold, drag the left mouse button, and I can kind of get that like that. Now, see how this one doesn't quite line up? Well, you can actually go in and adjust your handles like this. I can even break the handle to create a unique turn in the line, which is pretty cool. Or I can say, you know what? I changed my mind, undo. All I want to do is move it. Now, notice that they're both moving together. Now, this is probably one of the most powerful things that you'll ever learn in the computer ever. And that is because it also helps you with outlining photos and doing a whole bunch of design, unique design shapes like logos and all of that kind of stuff. Understanding these basics and how far to make these handles go out, right? You have your point in the center and then the little circles on the end are called handles, right? Like handlebars, right? That's what they're doing. They're adjusting that shape. And then we can keep going around and we can get a little bit more adventurous, maybe zoom out a little bit, say, okay, we're going to really do it super far here. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can just get that shape in there. Okay, well, actually, wait a minute. I didn't want to do it that far. I wanted to do it just to the square line where the two lines come together. So undo, undo, right? And then say right to here. And then, again, we'll just put that in there. And you can actually change it afterwards. You hold down the Control key or the Command key on Mac. And that will allow you to grab the handle. See, it changes the shape of the cursor. It might be a little hard to see, but you can see it looks like a little pin when it is in drawing mode. And hold down Control, it becomes a little hollow arrow for you to actually adjust it. Now, right here at the end, I can go ahead and hold down the Control key, or actually the Alt key in this case, and I can actually make it a straight line again. So if I hit L, notice that other handle disappeared, right? And so now I can click straight down, and I've got a straight down. So I've got a curved line, and then a straight line, and a curved line, and a straight line. And you can have your lines go in all sorts of directions, and it just makes it so elegantly wonderful to be able to create those shapes, right? And then you can see I just finished that up using my guides. Now, these blue things are guides, so I put a square down in a circle and just use it as a guide. So I can go around and make that shape. And so I can outline shapes. I can use multiple different shapes because everything is based on shapes. Everybody, squares, circles, and triangles, right? So my nose is a triangle. My head is a circle, really an oval, but it starts as a circle. My eyes are circles. My ears are ovals, right? My glasses right here, right? See little ovals there, right? These side things over here, this is a rectangle, right? Start as a square, then stretch it out to a rectangle, etc., etc. Everything can be shaped, even your hands, by circles and squares and triangles. And so once you get into that, then you start to see the world a whole different way. Walk around and start breaking everything that you see down into circles and triangles and squares, and watch how amazing things start to become, everybody, as an artist. That's one of the most revolutionary things I learned when I was about 7 years old. It was pretty amazing. Now, what's an easier way to do this same thing over here? Well, over here, I've got a square and a circle, and they're separate from each other. And I could use a function called Pathfinder in here that can just combine them together, just like that. So you don't even need to do all that work, everybody. I'll combine them together, and then you can actually see the arc, see the handles over here. You can actually see the handles and how it chose to do the handles, right? And you can learn from how it does it, right? That's a really great way to learn on how to do shapes and distances of your arcs when you are drawing stuff as a designer. Now, don't worry, everybody. I'm also going to show you free programs in which you can do this as well. But I'm just showing you the basic concepts of shapes and sizes, the basic concepts of graphic design that are vitally important for you to use. Now, other shapes that you might use is three-dimensional shapes. If you didn't know, you can actually take this. Now, I just move that down, or I can also make a copy of it by holding the Alt key. Again, you can learn Photoshop and Illustrator anywhere, but learning design concepts, I find, not so often. So what we're going to do is go to Effect here. We're going to go to Extrude 3D Bevel. So if you didn't know that, actually Illustrator can do 3D objects, which I think is pretty cool. And so you can rotate it. You can spin it in different directions and so on until you get what you want, right? So there we go. What is this called? This is called a cylinder, right? So cylinder is a three-dimensional shape, but it's also a shape that you want to figure out. Right, and the same thing here. We'll extrude this one right here. We'll make it nice and thick. So what's that? That's a cube, right? Especially if it's just perfectly square, that would be a cube. And then, of course, if we had triangles, we could also do that as well. Great example is if you make something, like we could take a square here. We could make a copy of that and say shrink it down, maybe rotate it so it's like this, like a diamond. Right, and then we could actually remove points from this shape to make it into over there. Use the I'm not using the minus. I'm using the plus. I didn't even notice. All right, there. All right, there we go. And now we made it into a triangle, shape. Now the thing is, we can also make things revolve. Right, make them into a three-dimensional object. And the way we want to do that is we can use different shapes. Notice I've got a triangle and I got a square over the top of it. And I can take out the fill so you guys can see that. And these are both, this is a square that I turned sideways and then took a point out at the bottom to make a triangle. And then this is a rectangle. So we're going to go ahead and fill that back in with white. And then we're going to tell it to remove this shape from this shape, right? So we can do this again. This is called Pathfinder. And it's like take the one in the back, and then take the item in the front and remove it from the one in the back. It's called back minus front. Boom. Now I have half of a triangle, right? Now I have like a 90-degree angle. It's like all of a sudden you're having math class flashback from high school, aren't you? And we can also revolve that object. And now you can see that I've revolved it around in that direction. We can also try to give it different colors here. Let's go ahead and give it like this, so you can see that the object is actually not perfectly round, and that object is actually concaved down in there because we took that shape and we revolved it around, so it basically is going in like this, right? So using those shapes to create other shapes is vitally important. Now, of course, if we wanted to adjust the angle, we could have it where it just does a portion of it as well. We can also adjust the way that it does revolve around there as well to create our triangle if we wanted to, and so on. But you can see that it's revolving by the center. And so again, we could revolve it. Let's see, right edge. There we go. And now you can see that we made a triangle, or cone in this case, actually what it's called. That we made a cone out of it, right? And this is another part of design is shapes, right? So you got your two-dimensional shapes and you have your three-dimensional shapes. And how close those are together is called proximity. Proximity is one of those things, right? Like if I have it over here, it doesn't feel so bad, right? But if I move it closer, you're going to get a different feel for it. And then it gets a little closer and a little closer and a little closer, and now it's overlapping. Now, overlapping is a different feeling from it not overlapping. This is part of design, everybody. I find the problem with designers is that they get so constrained to rules, and oh, I got to have it like this, and it's got to be this many distance away from this and that. Well, that's great, but what you really want to do is you want to feel it, right? Great example here in my thing here. If I go in, say to my little Photoshop icons down here, and I move this closer to this, and if it was touching like this, it would look like a mistake, right? That would look like a mistake, like I accidentally left it like that. But if I move it away like this, then it does not as much a mistake, but why is it going off the side of the line, right? Why is it going way off the side of this line here? It doesn't feel right. So go more by your gut feeling, unless your gut feeling isn't that great. But me, I go by how it feels more than all of the rules. And that's something you'll learn in graphic design after a long time. Does it feel too close? This feels too close to the line to me because I have all the space above and below. And so if I want to equalize all the space on all three sides, I want to go ahead and do something more like that. So you can see that it feels different in the way that you do it, right? And then, of course, if I have a lot of space between this and this feels like, okay, I've got a certain amount of thing over here, and it starts to feel heavy on one side, kind of like a teeter-totter, right? So if something is too far away, then it feels like it's out of the way. So thus why, if you notice that it's actually kind of spaced in between both of those to give equal space on both sides as well. So it feels more balanced, so it doesn't feel like all the stuff is on one side. If I put it all on one side, then it feels empty on this side, and it feels like everything's crowded on the other side. That's the basics of design as well. Again, understanding those concepts is probably the most important thing. Again, understanding about lines, understanding about shapes, forms, textures, colors, and then, of course, all your images. Now, in my great example, one of the things that I wanted to show you guys today, we're going to move on from what the basics of graphic design are and move into something that you could actually use it for, because that's another thing they don't tell you when they're trying to teach you Photoshop. How could you actually use that information? Well, in my case, I make overlays here for the stream. And look at that guy right there. He's just dreaming of playing some games. And what I do is I go in and I take some screenshots of the game, and then I figure out where the interface is. And I make guides around those interface. As you can see, I've put a kind of blue line around this thing over here. Let me move this over. Around this shape, so I know not to put me there, right? So I offset my camera to do that. And then, of course, I go through and I look through all the different locations and the different UI that's in there. You can see there's a UI here and so on. I'll move that up. There's a UI here. There's a structure object that pops up over here. And you can see there's something here in the center, which we'll get to. Yes, and look, there's a thing that pops up there. Anything that I might interfere with, I go through. Yeah, abandoned mines, a pop-up. Tells you where you're at. So I identify some of the most critical things, and that's why you find me right there. And that's a great way to start your overlay, is to get that idea. Then you go in and say you want to put something at the top of your stream with your name on it. You can go in and say start with a square. Maybe you want to round that square. Well, you've got the opportunity to round it as well. Let me put it in a color here. Switch over here and keep in there. You can see the edges of that square is starting to get rounded up here. That's called beveling your corners. You can see I can make them smaller or I can make them massive, right? So I can adjust the edges of those. I can actually change the type of those corners too, so they'd be inset like that. And then you can adjust the way it is. It feels very old-timey, like a ticket, right? Like your ticket you get like at the carnival and stuff like that. Very much popularized by that. And of course, you could have the edge square as well. So it feels more like a sign, right? So if I took this and I push this together, what does that look like, everybody? Yeah, it looks like a stop sign, right? I could even put it in red just to give it that extra little something, right? Now, of course, it's not shaped completely like a stop sign. It's more of a square sign. If you wanted to get unique objects, you actually have a whole bunch of tools for making those polygon tools. That is more like a stop sign like this, or I could actually tell it more shapes. I could say maybe 8 instead. And then there's our stop sign right there. It's an 8-sided object, right? This is very close, but of course the distance between the edges are vitally important, and that's where your shapes come in, right? That's where your shapes come in. This is going to be much more recognizable as a stop sign than this, and that's because it has equal edges, right? So this is a 45 degree, then you have the same distance here that you have across here, and so on, the same distance all the way around. And it's basically a square. That's kind of its trick, everybody, is that it's a square, but the edges are kind of cut off. And that is how you design a stop sign, just that easy. It's an 8-sided square or 8-sided object. And you can go in, or 8-sided polygon. And you can also go in and make stars too if you want. Yeah, stars are fun. And you're like, Kismet, how can I adjust my stars? Well, you can just go in and hold down the Alt key and then click, or Option key on the Mac, and say you wanted a 10-sided star. Boom! Now you got yourself a little starburst going, don't you? What happens is if you say, you know what, I don't want that, I want a 3-pointed star. Well, what does that make? Triangle. There you go. So now you know how to do a triangle just like that, using your polygon tool. And you're like, well, Kismet, I can't afford Illustrator. I can't afford Photoshop. Well, guess what? Some of the stuff that I do, like, great example, my thumbnails that I do in Photoshop or in Illustrator. You can see here I am doing a Starfield thumbnail with me. I'm going to show you how I cut out me out of there using some of the techniques that we just showed you with the pin tool. So we've got me here smiling, right here, right? I'm smiling, having a great old time doing some Starfield. Now, in the old days, what you would do is you would use your pin tool. Now, I'm in Photoshop now, and I'm going to show you how to do it in another program too, a free program here in just a second. And so I can go through, and I can just click along me, right? So I can use curves and lines to outline me. Now, maybe I just want to get me, or maybe I want to get the chair as well. So I can go along, and of course, I've been doing this for many, many years, everybody. So, you know, obviously, I'm going to be a bit faster at it than some people will be. But really the whole thing is when you're doing stuff is to remember that you're creating a shape. Not to look at the individual objects, but to look at the shape itself. Like right here, see how my hair kind of pops across the top here? We call that the haircut, everybody, where we just make that more straight, like that, and so on and so forth. And so you would go all the way around. But because technology has so advanced, and I'm just going to do this really fast, right here. And again, lines and circles and shapes. And there we go. Say something like this. You can always come back and modify stuff too. See how this one here is not quite right? We'll go ahead and modify that a little bit. Close enough. And that is called a path over here. So I can go ahead and hold down Control, click. Now I got me. I can go Control J, and boom, I'm now lifted up off of the other thing, just like that, using the pin tool. So now you saw 2 reasons for pin tools. Pin tool for making shapes, pin tool for making masks. That's basically what that was, as a path mask, right? Very much, you can also use other things like the tool to do it. But Photoshop is so advanced now, everybody, that you can actually use a tool that does it even faster called the Object Selection tool. Watch this, everybody. This is awesome. You just go ahead and select me, boom, like that, with a big marquee selection, and it automatically figures it out. It figured it out for me. That's right. That wasn't me. And if you notice inside the headset here, it actually already figured it out mostly in the headset. Now, if there's certain parts in there that it didn't get, say I wanted to get also the chair at the same time. Again, the name of that one is called the Object Selection tool. Pretty cool. I could use another tool in combination with what I already have by holding down the Shift key, and I can go ahead and just go ahead and get the rest of this. And you're like, oh, Kismet, I got all that other stuff. Oh, we can fix that because we can add and subtract. Shift is adding, Option, subtracting, right? So I go along the edge here, subtract all this other stuff like this, and a little bit more of that. There we go. Now I've got me and that, and it's cut out the little area between my headphones. And if I go do that, boom, there we go. And I can keep going and fine tuning. It depends on how smooth you want the edge of your cutout to be, right? And you saw I just gave you some massive epic tools to do that with. And that's why the pin tool is so useful. I have done hundreds of thousands of massive, I mean, to an extreme degree. I have outlined chandeliers, everybody, which takes 4 or 5 hours to go in and outline a chandelier and get all the little things inside there so you can take them chandeliers and put it in a magazine or a brochure or whatever. I've done windows where I've taken buildings out of other windows because they didn't want the building next to their building showing in their windows when I was doing stuff, and just a whole bunch of stuff. You can even see the thumbnail for what this particular thing is done also in Photoshop here. And of course, I've thrown some things in that have to do with graphic design. This is something called combining symbols, right? So you want to make it relevant to whatever it is that you're designing. In this case, we're talking about color, we're talking about shapes, we're talking about lines, and we're talking about different software. And of course, in the background there, this is actually imagery in the background, which is your photos and stuff of that nature. So I've combined all of those symbols into one. And if you know what those are, well, then you understand it. But now that I told you what it is, now you understand a little bit more, right? So now you get why those things are in there in the first place. And that's what I want you to understand. If you notice that I've already cut me out and I put me right here, already in there as well. Now, what if I wanted to take this Photoshop document and I wanted to open it in a free program, right? Because I can't afford Photoshop or don't want to pay for it. You can actually go into another program called GIMP. GIMP is free. You can go ahead and download it. I'll go ahead and show you right here. It's called GNU Image Manipulation Program. You can download it totally for free and actually design yourself some thumbnails and even design yourself some overlays and whatnot in GIMP as well. Another fantastic program, very much like Illustrator, is called Inkscape, where you can go in and you can design vector-based art. Now you're like, well, Kismet, tell me what this vector and pixel-based thing means. Well, a great example is if you're an Illustrator, if you go in and you make something, right? Let's just zoom out of here. And you make something like the shapes that we're making. If we take a photo, like let's take this photo of me smiling here. And I'm going to take that, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into Illustrator. And then what we're going to do is put it off here to the side. There we go. And we're going to zoom in on it. And then we're going to keep zooming. God, Kismet. Let's zoom in on here. We can start to see the little pixels, right? We can start to see the little pixels, the little squares, right? Those are called, DPI or pixels, dots per inch. And there's basically little tiny squares that are colored but they're so small that they're hard for the human eye to see, right? But they are there. So if I try to make it bigger, then it actually goes down in quality. If I make it smaller, it actually goes up in quality, which is great. But if I make it go up in size, those little boxes will get bigger, and that's what causes that pixelization, right? Now let's go do the same thing with this circle over here that I made in Illustrator. Now again, that other one was made, was a photo that was captured on stream, a video, and also a photo. So if I zoom in, say right here on this line, let's just keep zooming in and zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. Still looks perfectly straight. No pixels in there, are there? That's because this is actually a line. This is a line that is being mathematically calculated by the computer between the various different points, right? These points right here. So let's go ahead and highlight this point here and zoom way on it. Actually, a little too much zoom in there. We're zooming in on the center. Let's zoom in like this. There we go. Zoom in. And you can see that this point is at the apex of these things right here. It's called an anchor point. And so it's where all of those come together. So it's just calculating, okay, I've got a point here and I got a point here, so I'm going to make a line between those 2 points, right? So you make the points, it makes the lines. That's the basics of vector art, right? You're making points, not lines. Keep that in mind. Because it does the lines and it calculates the lines. And thus, this circle could be any size. I can shrink it down to the size of a logo and put it on a t-shirt, or I can make it the size of a billboard. I could put it on the side of a gigantic building if I wanted to, because it doesn't lose its quality. Now, if you take a photo and you put it in Illustrator, that doesn't mean it becomes vector, everybody. It will still remain as those little pixels, no matter what program you put it in, if you turn it into pixels. It's called rasterization, right? Let's take another example here. Let's take this and let's fill it, let's say, with some blue, right? And we're going to take both objects and we're going to put two of these together. One of these is going to be the vector one on the left, and the one on the right, I'm going to do what's known as rasterize the object. And so I'm going to make it real high quality. RGB 300 DPI, real fancy quality there. There we go. Notice it made a white area around the outside. That's because it now became an image. Keep that in mind. And so now if we compare these two things together and we start to zoom in, look at the difference in the lines, right? Can you guys see that? Can you see the difference? This is the fundamental understanding of making any graphics in the computer. The difference between your pixel art and your vector art. The less you know about that, the harder of a time you're going to have. The more you know, the easier time you're going to have getting high quality stuff to come out, right? When I'm, say I get someone's logo, like I get the Starfield logo here, I would prefer to have a vector art. So I could zoom in on it. Gotta click on it first. There we go. Seems like it's grouped with something. There we go. Something on top of it. There we go. So if we zoom in and look at it, we can see that it is high quality. We can see it's made out of shapes and colors. I can actually go in and modify this too. I can actually change this to a different color, nice and easy, like that, right? And so that is vector art. So I can make that as big or as small as I want and not have to worry about losing quality. But if it was a photo, and this, if you notice, also same thing here with all of the social media, but notice this one here is a square, right? This one here is square with an X through the center. That one's actually a photo. So if I zoom in, say on just that one, there we go. If I zoom in just on this one over here, if it lets me. Why does it keep doing that? It's doing something funky. Get out of there. That's a weird thing it's doing right there. That's a PC thing. But I'll just zoom way in and move over. If I zoom way in, eventually this particular thing is going to pixelate, right? It's going to show those pixels. God, that's annoying. That is super annoying. Hold on. Yeah, on PC you always have this kind of crap that happens. This really weird crap. And it also has a problem copying and pasting too. Especially transparent objects. All right. Take this. Copy that. Paste it over here. Nope. Doesn't want to do it. Fine, I'll use this. There we go. So if I zoom in on this, you can actually start to see those kind of pixelated edges like this. See the little lines, the little pixels there? If we look at the text, we can see it's starting to pixelate. If I make it too big, we're going to see all those little jagged little pixels, right? But if it's a vector art, you don't have that particular problem in there, and should be able to make it any size without having that problem. Just like you saw us do with the circles, with them together. One is rasterized and one is not. You can see that, of course, it affects the quality or resolution of your actual objects. So that's a vitally important thing to know as well. So if you are working, say, on overlays, you would want to start with your vector art. Now, there's some things in vector that you're doing, right? Say you're making shapes. that you can't do like this, that you can do in Photoshop, right? Say you want to do some neon or you want to do stuff like that, some special effects and so on. You can do some special effects here, but the second you start to go to these Photoshop effects here, where you say do like a neon glow around there, what it's going to do is that neon glow is going to affect the object and turn it into a pixel-based object in there. And so if we zoom in, look at the jaggedness, or maybe you can't see it. Let me zoom in some more. There we go. See that jaggedness? Because it turned it into a photo, and it's no longer a vector art. So you have to find a way of doing that by going in and using some techniques to make that happen. In Illustrator, if you wanted to blow it up really big, or the smart thing to do, this is the best advice I can give you, make it the largest size possible. If the largest size you're going to run it is poster size, then you build the original at poster size, and then you can always shrink it down to other sizes, but you always make it at the largest size. And I do that in Illustrator also. I will make it at its largest size. So if I have something that's going to be, say, 11 by 17, I will build it 1117, and then say later I'm going to use it much smaller in another layout or the side of a layout. Well, then I can shrink it down. It'll be fine. But you always make it at its largest size, and that will avoid that problem of, like this one, you can see actually it can go pretty far in because it's pretty large. But eventually we'll see it if we zoom in enough or we make it large enough. But in this case, this is actually a very large image because we can, get away with it at different sizes for sure. So let's take that on out of there. So that's the basics of how I do overlays. Is I'll get me some graphics here and then just get the general, oh, there we go. Get the general shapes of what's there. That's why these are up here, because you got your right and mouse button here. And so over here, I go ahead and put a guide down that tells me, okay, I don't want to put anything there, right? So I've got my alerts that come up. So alerts are going to pop up over here on the right in my particular case, because I don't want them to overlap up here or over here. Maybe you've got something on there that shows who followed or who subscribed, things of that nature, or donations or whatnot. You'd want to think about where you're putting those things in your overlays. And when it comes to doing your thumbnails, don't make it too busy, everybody. Like my schedule would not make a great thumbnail. All right, this would not be great. It's too busy. There's too many things going on for a thumbnail, but it works great as a schedule because then people can see, okay, well, it's 3 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He's playing from Fallout 76, and I've got additional information here, bonus information on what's going on for the week with Fallout 76. And then over here, hey, get your Bethesda gear. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm playing Starfield. And I change my schedule up. Sometimes I do it vertical, horizontal. I like to rotate it from time to time just to change the visual style of it. So it's not always the same. And you'll see that sometimes I combine Sunday and Monday together. With 10 p.m. Sunday, Monday, Fallout Run, then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday together, Starfield. Because what it does in design, you're always trying to simplify things. How can you convey the same message with less things? So when you design something, how can I reduce that? A great example is when I was designing this, right? I can go in and I can make this as complex with a bunch of graphics and, put all graphics all around the outside. Well, all I need is one thing that visually represents what I want to talk about. In this case, the Spooky Scorched event. And then what are the dates and what is the name of the event? That's all that's needed, everybody. And then some lines and shapes, right? Lines and shapes would be the thing that's behind there, of course, in that standard Fallout kind of terminal style with that green, with the darker green line around the outside. Simple, easy, conveys the message. It doesn't need to be any more fancy or complex than that. And then, of course, I've got Fallout 76 events this week. If we look at it in this mode, we can see that Fallout 76 logo is actually a vector logo, so I can make it bigger or smaller. I can put it, at the bottom of something, or I can make it as a headline. I could do all sorts of things with it because of that. The same thing with the nuke codes. If you notice, I put space between there because most people think of numbers in a sequence, like phone numbers. You type in your phone number, your area code, and so on. And so that's why I put a gap in there so that people can go 544 and then say, okay, what's the next one? 03. What's the next one? too, right? Because I know that's the way that people think. So not only am I doing it design-wise, I'm also doing it because that helps the person who's using that information, right? So you got to think of who the end person is as well. Now, I always start from the end and work my way backwards. In the case of this thing over here, I said, what is the information that I'm always looking up? What are you going to be looking up as a Fallout 76 player every single week? Well, what are the events? What are the new codes? And where is Minerva at? Usually, those are the three things that I'm usually looking for, and I can't remember that I usually have to ask chat. So I said, well, you know what? I'll design a little thing that just makes it super obvious, right? And so if you see Minerva, you say, oh, Minerva, where's she at? Oh, she's at Foundation. Okay, until November 1st. Okay, cool. Now we know, right? And of course, as the week changes, I come back in here and I change those new codes and I change the dates. Sometimes I get them wrong. It happens in design, especially when you're doing it 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And so design is around function, right? What is the function? And you're combining symbols, right? What are the two combining symbols of this right here? Well, the combining symbols is a photo that has to do with the Spooky Scorch, and then, of course, the text, and, of course, the logos and all of those things. You're combining visual elements. And how close this guy is to this text makes a difference. It actually makes a difference in what you're doing. So if I go in and I grab him and I'm moving him all up into like that, you can see that has a different feel than if he's over here, right? Also, how bright the image is, whether it's darker or lighter, whether it can be seen is very vitally important, especially when you're shrinking stuff down. Because when you're shrinking it down, it's going to compress those dots together, and it's going to actually get darker. So you got to watch out when you do that. Now, there are some free programs like GIP you saw that you can go in and you can make your own stuff. Look, I can move this around in the background. I can grab this text. I can move that around. I took the Photoshop document and brought it into GIMP. GIMP is free. You can download on the internet, gimp.com or whatever it is. Let's go look. It is gimp.org. Gimp.org. You go download that and use that totally for free. Inkscape, download it totally for free and use that as well. I actually use that also for embroidery. So I go in and try to grab different shapes and then move it over to embroidery. And then you can actually trace around it and do all sorts of great stuff using that as well. Very, very cool. But that is basically the basics of design, using your different lines and shapes and text and graphics all together to combine all the symbols to create something toward the in-person, right? The in-person, in this case, maybe they're looking for Fallout 76. Maybe they want to know what my video is about. What is my video about? Well, I'm playing Starfield and I'm doing it in very hard mode. Now, thumbnails are different than most design. Thumbnails are just to catch someone's eye and they go, do I want to click on that? Because they're going to have to probably watch some ads. So it's like, is it worth my time? And I can tell you, I've clicked on some videos and I looked at how much time it was and I was like looking for, okay, how do I make neon lighting in Photoshop, right? Say something like that. And I look at the time, it's like 45 minutes long. And I'm like, 45 minutes long to show me how to do neon. Geez, that's going to take forever. Why don't you just get to the point? And I feel like that has correlated with the thumbnail. The thumbnail is also going to give you that impression. Like, is it professionally done? Is it something that just gets to the point right away? I mean, this just sums it up. I'm playing Starfield in very hard mode. Simple, right? And I got a graphic of very hard mode and me having fun doing it. Right? That's the whole thing. Same thing with graphic design, right? I'm having a good time. Or maybe I'm sad, or maybe I'm happy, or maybe I'm shocked or amazed or whatnot, right? So your colors also have to do with those emotions, right? Different colors go with different emotions. Red, anger, yellow being more mellow, right? That's why I call it mellow yellow, right? Because yellow is like that. Maybe a brown or whatnot. That's going to be more of a warm, kind of a yellowish brown. Orangey color, going to be more warm, more satisfying. If you're using blues and dark blues and greens, those things are going to be more cold colors, right? They're going to give that cold impression, but maybe that's what you want. Something spooky, something scary, something along that line. Really, all of the colors really give off an emotional response by human beings. So that's another reason to really get into your colors and understanding what your colors are for. Now, There are an infinite amount of resources now. See, when I learned graphic design, there wasn't, everybody. You had to apprentice as a graphic design, and you learn from other graphic designers who passed it down, who passed it down, who passed it down, and so on and so forth. That's when I learned it. I learned it the old school way, the way where you couldn't just go onto YouTube and learn every single thing that you possibly would ever want to learn in your lifetime. I learned it the old school way, and which I think is a little bit better because they taught me the concepts first before they got to the programs. My job is to teach you the concepts. Your job is to be awesome. Is to take that and run with it and make something amazing. Now, at first, your designs are not going to be very good. I'm just going to tell you the truth. They're not going to be very good. You're going to beat yourself up more than anybody else. And doing stuff like this, everybody, I have been doing this so long, this is like breathing to me. I don't even think a second thought of it now. I can just run in, do what I need to do, and I'm out of there onto the next project as well. Same thing with thumbnails. And I like to do thumbnails that are my style of thumbnail, right? There's all different types of style of thumbnails. But I just try to get to the point, everybody. It's graphic design basics. I'm having a good time. That's simply it. And then I throw some symbols in there to represent that thing. Now I can make a fancy border and all sorts of fancy thing, and I can put all the tools and all the stuff in there, completely unnecessary, just to try to get your point across. Same thing with, again, with these here. Now, of course, if we move these elements around, which we can move this down here, and we can move this up here, where the mode is a little obstructed. Which is cool. Maybe make me a little bit smaller by transforming. Control T, like this. How does that feel? Does that feel different? And that's how you should look at it. How does it feel to you? Now, I would move the star field in the center if I was going to do that, because then it's going to more balance. But see how you got me on the side, but I've got nothing over here? So now everything's balanced on that side. And so if I wanted to, make this a little bit better, I would do something like this and try to counterbalance. Maybe I want to do a certain effect. Maybe I want to put the star field right behind the shine, and then very hard mode down here. What if I do very hard mode in one line? Notice I've used color variation, right? Reds and yellows. Maybe very hard mode at the bottom. And then me, let's say, on top of that. Actually, I would bring the text layer-wise up over the top of me, like this. And then maybe to really make it pop, right? Make it pop out of there, I would grab a rectangle. I'd put that rectangle down, and I would fill that rectangle with, say, black. Run that behind my text, and put me behind that shape as well. And now look at the totally different feel of that particular thing, right? And this is called iteration. And I go until I either run out of time or I like it. As a graphic designer, it is incredibly difficult to get to a point where you're just like, I love that, right? Because you always want to come back and fix it a little bit. You always want to do more with it, right? More with it as well. Now, in this case, I would make myself a little bigger. Definitely for sure. Now, if I make myself a little bigger there, Photoshop's going to help me out a little bit by trying to res that up a little bit. But the bigger I make myself in Photoshop here, the more problem I could potentially have with that pixelization. Though I kind of like that. Maybe I'll do my thumbnails like that. See, sometimes you're goofing off and you find stuff that you like, everybody. Maybe to do something different than everybody else, right? Just make me incredibly huge, staring at the Starfield logo. See, it's also an eye line. See, I'm like looking at the Starfield logo. There's so much, everybody. We go down a massive rabbit hole of graphic design. But again, teaching you the basics, the fundamentals of design. And again, they have to do with color. They have to do with shapes, proximity of those shapes. Of course, all your fonts, all of your three-dimensional shapes as well, cones, cylinders, whatnot. And of course, there's something else that is vitally important, and that is called white space. White space is the space between all your objects, right? And that has to do with, say, something like right here. We have these two objects, right? And so let's give this one, say, a blue inside. This space that's in between is called white space. Some clients call it air, which I think is ridiculous. I've actually had people come in, put more air in there. Okay. Okay, I'll get right on that. It's called white space. But there's a difference in white space. And see, when you put it something closer to each other, you should be able to feel the difference of when it's closer and when it's further, right? And where is that kind of spot that's perfect for that particular layout and that particular setup? Maybe you just want to cut these two out of each other, like this. Boop. Make it into a combined shape, right? Maybe you want to cut the circle out of the edge, and now you've got a rounded edge. I can also cut it out of the edge. Show you a great little trick. I can cut it out of the edge like this, and then I can paste another circle on top of it, and then I can offset it, and then look at that. Now we have white space in between the two objects. And notice the difference in the feel here and the difference in the feel there, right? See the difference? And let's zoom way in and really get that vibe. Okay, there or there. Right, there. Better one, better two for all you who wear glasses. Better one, better two. What feels better to you, right? Some people would say, oh, it feels better when it's connected. Some people say, what does it feel when it's saying? It depends on what you're going to do with it, right? It depends on, are you going to fill in the area in between with color? Maybe I want to go in and fill in a shape that's in between there, right? Maybe go in, do something like this, turn it to yellow. Take this object and take it and put it to behind. And now it's got a whole different feel again, doesn't it? Again, these are the concepts of design that you need to master, is how stuff feels. How does it feel to you? How's it going to feel to other people? How are other people going to perceive it? Is it going to be hard to read the text? Is it going to be too much stuff? Is it going to be jumbled, right? Everyone's seen them garage sale flyers, right? Where it's just got a bunch of stuff on there with little starbursts and all of that stuff. Obviously, that's not high-end design, but it's functional. It does work for garage sales, so you got to give them credit for the garage sales. And that's the thing as well. Hold on one second, everybody. Gotta press a lot of buttons. Press it all the buttons. Kismet don't play, everybody. Kismet don't mess around. Oh, I'm gonna wait for my Discord to load up. But getting back to what we were talking about, everybody. So again, you notice the difference of when I have it close together. That's proximity. It's also white space, right? So the distance between them. And again, if I take this and I move it out again more, see the thickness of the line makes a difference. And then if I move it all the way out, you can see that makes a difference as well. Again, feeling the negative space, aka the white space, is vitally important as well. And again, what if I change the color behind there? Say we go in and we change it to black. Take that, put that behind there. How does it feel now? It's even though it's black, the background is black. That's still a negative space. That's still a negative space. Most people will probably consider that negative if you've ever worked with photo stuff and a photo negative. But you can see that's still that negative space. Doesn't matter what color's there. There's a positive and a negative space there for you to work with, or white space between objects. Especially with text, everybody. Text is probably one of the worst things that people cram together. Text. Oh, my caps lock on. Text, there we go. And we'll put it in a different font. Let's say YouTube Sans. We'll put it in there. Notice I can see it sometimes and sometimes I can't. Again, that's a positive and negative space when I run it over the top of stuff. This is the basics of design. And I always start with simple shapes. Whenever you go to do design, you want to start with your squares and circles. So like in this case, if we're going to make an object, the first thing I would do is figure out what the actual dimensions of it is, right? When it comes to video, or if you're doing any graphics nowadays, if you're doing it, say, on Twitter or whatever it is, it's 1920 by 1080 pixels. So I go 1920 by 1080, and boom, there's my shape right there. And you might notice that it actually fits right in the center of that page. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and flip it so it just has the outer border, like that. And now that tells me it is. Or I could just create a file that's 1920 by 1080, like that, and then it's already at that shape when I start, right? And then say maybe I want a border around that shape. Well, I can start by putting the shape in, and then switch to my border, take out the center, and then I can adjust the size of it with the stroke value. So those are called strokes on the outside. These are called gradients. If you want to put a thing in the center, see, this is a circular gradient, and they have linear gradients that go across as well. You can actually edit your gradients as well. See this, how it goes from white to this. This is a radial gradient. It starts with the center and works its way outwards, right? And then really funky freeform gradient where you can actually go in and just like adjust how the gradients are, which I think is an incredibly awesome thing. So you don't just have the same boring gradient. Very, very cool. Also called blends or vignettes as well, because you got to have 3 names for everything in graphic design. So there you go. So now you started, right? And then you might say, okay, well, I want a headline here. I might want, you know, some sort of photo over here. So I want that photo to be rounded like this. Now, before you actually put the objects themselves in, you'd want to go ahead and get a general idea of your general shapes. Maybe some text across the top here, maybe some text here. And you can see that this is as much of a graphic design layout as having the full finished one over here. This particular one is a bunch of squares that are split up into 2 separate sides, right? So if we were to kind of rebuild this quite quickly, we could go in and just go in and make this, right? And we'll take out our blend and all of that stuff. I always work with solid lines and black and white lines just to make it easy. But what I would want to do is cut this in half, right? And say, okay, one side is going to be daytime and the other side is going to be nighttime. And that's actually how I have it set up. So this side is nighttime, this side is daytime. Okay, I've got the header of my schedule over here on the left, right? So I'm going to have my name, my Twitch channel, all my social media, all of that stuff over there. Then I'm going to have, and again, you have to figure this out because you got so many days in the week, right? In this case, and so how can I put my header there and then still line up the days of the week? Well, I've got Monday or Sunday and Monday together. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing and create that over here. So this will be Sunday and Monday. Then I have 3 days on both sides, right? 3 days on both sides. And so I will say, okay, well, these are going to be 3 days and they're going to take up this much of my design. And so I have the daytime 3 days and I have the nighttime 3 days, right? And then I have 2 days after that to go. So maybe I might want to make this a little smaller and whatnot. Now, all I'm doing is getting the general feel for that particular thing. And then again, I can go ahead and copy this down. Let's say we'll go ahead and cut the last 2 parts of this in half, like this. And then we can take this shape and we can create our schedule. Now, do you see this in a whole different light now? Does it look different to you? Because now you know where the shapes are and how it started. I think that should be a powerful thing in your mind right now. Oh, that's how you did that. You started with just some squares and kind of segmented it off to get a general idea and try to fit all the information in there. And then that is what made this. This just has all the info. And you can see also that I cut that top part off in a little bit left so I could put multi-streaming at the top there as well. So I cut this part in half again. So I went in and said, okay, hold on. Let's take this top part here and we cut that, say like this, and then we put the multi-streaming up here, and then we put that day stuff there. Again, that's a visual thing that you need to start looking at other designs and seeing how the shapes are starting, right? And each of those things has a purpose and a projection toward the peeps. Then also I went in and readjusted over here, and you can see that this is actually cut off again with a corner. So I've indented this, so that now is separate and not all the way across. So I could have more room for this over here. So I'm using a lot of squares and shapes and rounded edges to make it look less boring with just squares, right? Squares are fairly boring. I have rounded shapes. I have vignettes, you can see, that's going across back behind that design. See that color variation that's going on there? Colors that go well together, blue and yellow are complementary colors of each other, and so on. You can see I'm using a purple to a red. Why am I doing that? Purple for Twitch, red for YouTube. And you can see I'm bringing that through. Of course, now I stream on 4 different platforms, everybody. I stream a lot. So that gets you the general idea of why I do all of that and how that is basically shaped. Let me go ahead and put this up here while I'm thinking about it. Over here. There we go. All right. Lots of buttons to click on. All right. Now, you might also notice that I've got these things down here. These are called color chips. As a graphic designer, you have a thing called a press kit. A press kit describes how a company uses a logo. So if you're ever looking for a logo or something like that, you can look under press kits, or you can say logo, vector art, or things like that, because those things have certain colors. Now, my certain colors are these here. Now, this number over here represents a hexadecimal thing, and that's usually for the internet, by the way, everybody. You can go in here and you can change your color things to web safe RGB, and you're going to see in that upper right hand corner there, I can actually type this in, B4FF46, and look, it all changed to that color. Why did it do that? Because I actually went and looked up that color on the internet. And the same thing here with this. So these are to call out colors on the web. Now, if I was going to do these same colors like this, let's say we're going to do these in cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, right? So say we're going to do these same colors in those colors, right? So we're going to do them in print, right, for a magazine or something like that. I would go in and first convert this color to a CMYK color right here. Oh, come on. There you go. And what I could do is then modify how that color ends up. I'll show the options. There we go. So we can see that this has a cyan value. It might be a little hard for you guys to see on the stream, but I'm going to show you or tell you. Right here, we can see the 4 different colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, black, which are the 4 colors of printing. Typically, you can actually have 6 colors, 8 colors as well, as many as you want, really. But these are the basic ones that are used. So I'm going to make that cyan 30%. So it's a real solid color, right? And then yellow is going to be 100%. Now, if you notice that the color looks a little different, right? Because on the screen, you can have these really bright, vibrant colors. But when you start mixing inks together, they start the tendency to darken. And that's where your color spaces come in and all of your color management. This is vitally important if you are designing anything that's going to go to print, that you have that. Now, on the screen, a lot easier. If you're making websites or making logos that are only going to be on the screen, or you're doing stuff for video and whatnot, not as difficult. But this right here is cyan. This over here, let's get this over here. This now is cyan 30. There we go. And this is 100 yellow. So the way we would do this is we would say 30. We would say 0, 0, nope, 100 actually. And then Over here, we would say black 0. Like that. And that's called a call out or a color call out. So cyan, magenta, yellow, and K is for black. Because you don't want to use B, because B also stands for blue, and a whole bunch of other things that you don't want to get it confused with. So that's how we would call that out. And we would say, okay, this is, 30 cyan and 100 yellow. What if I wanted red? I can tell you that if I took red and say we wanted to make the standard CMYK red, we would use 100 magenta and 100 yellow. What does magenta look like? Well, let's go ahead and let's make some magenta right up here. So we're going to take all of this out right over here, and we're going to make magenta. So magenta very much like a pink, right? And then what is 100% yellow? Oh, that's probably pretty easy. You've probably seen 100% yellow before. And what if we mix them together, right? We take these two and we start to adjust the opacity. Ah, look at that. So primary colors, secondary colors, everybody. So primary colors would be the magenta and the yellow, and the secondary color would be our red. Now, of course, that's not really that red because I'm reducing the value of the yellow. But if I go in and actually make a chip just for that, say down here, and then we go in and we say, okay, we want this to be 0 cyan, 100 magenta, and 100 yellow. There is our CMYK red. So there we go, mixing colors, very vitally important, right? And so you want to know the different spaces. RGB for red, green, blue, which is basically light, right? So the light that's shining into your monitor and into your eyeballs right now, that's RGB light. That's visual light. And then, of course, CMYK is inks, right? Inks that you're putting down on paper or on whatever it is you're putting it on. Like you can put it on this right here, right? This right here, Lucid Sound. You know what this is right here, by the way? This is a dull and a gloss varnish. So you've got the dull side, and you've got the dull side is the Lucid Sound, and then the shiny side is the actual headphones. Right? Yeah, see? Kismet knows his stuff. So there you go. Can you apply color instantly with that code line? You absolutely can, Lord Winter. Now let me catch up a little bit on chat. I wanted to get to that point, and then we're going to do a little Q&A. So if you have some questions about design, you want me to show you a little bit of something, I'll be happy to show you to a certain degree. I only got so much time, but we'll get into it. Let's see. Yes. I love watching other designers do the thing. Helps me keep things fresh. Thanks for doing the stream. You're welcome. You guys unlocked it. You guys helped show support for the stream. And there you go. Yes, Figma for free. Definitely. All vector like thing. Oh, you can also, again, you can use GIMP. And all you have to do, by the way, everybody, is just go to the internet and say Illustrator free program, or Illustrator alternative, Photoshop alternatives, InDesign alternatives, right? And there are a ton of them out there, a ton of free programs. Now, do they have all of the tools of Photoshop and Illustrator? I think they work a bit clunkier. The GIMP definitely works clunkier, but as you get used to it, it wouldn't be as bad. And of course, I've been using Photoshop for 35 years and Illustrator for 35 years. So I'm more used to using it, and I know all the command keys and shortcuts and all of that stuff. Very important to learn your shortcuts, everybody. Great example when you're in Photoshop. Right here, if I'm moving this, right, I'm in the Move tool, which is the one at the top, right? So I hit V to get that tool. I want the text tool. I hit T for text. Then I can highlight the text. I can make modifications to the text. I can do whatever I want. I want to get back to the Move tool, right? Well, if I hit V right now, what does it do? It types in V. How do I get out of there? Enter. Enter key on the 10 key. Right there. Now I'm still in the text tool. How do I know? Because if I click, I start typing text. I don't want to do that. I want to move my Starfield logo. How can I do that? Well, what you can do is basically go and hit V, like for move. It's like the third level letter in the word move. And now, oh, wait a minute. I'm not moving. I'm moving the text. How do I move the Starfield? Well, I go to my layers over here on the side. By the way, I used Photoshop before it had layers. We just used channels back in the day. And now we can move the Starfield. Now, there's also a way of it auto-selecting. You can have an auto-select up there where if I click on this, now it'll move that, or I click on this, it'll auto-select. It always trips me up, so I don't really use it. But you can actually use auto-select. And that's actually what it does here in GIMP automatically. It'll grab this, or it'll grab Starfield, it'll grab me. And so, again, these programs are totally free. Again, another great one is Inkscape. And then the one that Wombat's talking about, Figma as well. And there are a list of them. There's 10, 15. Find one that best fits the way that you think, right? Like I own a program called Maya, right? It's a 3D animation program. It cost me $4,000. I'm not kidding. $4,000 is one of the highest end 3D softwares you can have. But I actually prefer the free program Blender because it works more like the way I think as an artist and a graphic designer, and not so much as an engineer does when it comes to Maya. Now, Maya is incredibly powerful. You can do a lot of amazing things with it, but if it's such a high learning curve and so tedious to use, it becomes less functional for most people. Of course, some people will go in and learn it and be exceptionally good at it, so more power to you. But I actually prefer Blender, and it's free. And it does an incredibly great job on the little things that I'm doing. I'm not doing, stuff that's going to be Toy Story and stuff of that nature, everybody. I'm doing little animations that pop up on screen and things like that. Oh, like speaking of animations, hold on. I just remembered. Let's see, where is it? Over here. Over here. I knew there was something I was trying to remember. This is like 2 hours in the stream now, but let's remember right here. There we go. AMZ coming in, showing some love. Right at the top of the stream, getting a new sub badge. Sorry, AMZ, I just thought of it. I'm so out of it. 2 years of love train. Teamwork Tycoon, show AMZ some love. Now, see, I'm just doing little animations like that. Nothing too super fancy. And that was done in Blender. So very cool. Actually, I did originally in Maya and then went in and updated it in Blender many years later because you can move stuff between programs. Like if I wanted to take something from Illustrator or from Photoshop, I can grab, say, me or the Starfield logo or whatever, and I can actually just select it right here and go in and select all, copy, and just paste it into Illustrator from Photoshop, just like that. Easy peasy, right? The biggest problem that you're going to have is when you paste something that has a transparent background. And this is mainly on PC. This does not actually have this issue on Mac. And you can also squash and stretch me around. Whoa, see, I'm getting spaghettified into the thing. But I can go ahead and copy myself there. I hit Control and then click on the layer to do that highlighting. So it's just highlighting the thing. And then copy and then paste. Let me get it in the front here. There we go. Notice that when it pastes, it has this white edge around it, right? That's because it's opaque. That's pasting as an opaque background, right? There's transparent and opaque. So transparent is one end and opaque is the other end. And then there's transparency in between. So between 0 and 100%. This is 100% opaque. Normally you'd want it to be transparent. So that leads us to another thing called formats. And this is a bonus thing I'm going to give to you guys, everybody. We did a bonus thing about resolution. And then now we're going to do another bonus thing about formats. Now, there's only really 3 formats you need. Native, JPEG, and PNG most of the time. Now, of course, you want to use GIFs for animations and things like that. That's a whole different stream in itself. But when you go save as out of Photoshop or wherever you are, I can also go in here and go save as. And I'm really going to dazzle you, everybody. Built into your PC is a program called Photos. And that Photos can actually modify photos. Just like you have on the Mac, you have another Photos program. Like I can go into my Fun Detected here, right? Just right here on the program that comes with your PC. And there's a little edit button at the top. You click that edit button. And then you can go in, you can modify this. I can crop it, rotate it, do all sorts of fun things with it, right? Rotate it there, crop it down to just get the exclamation point and whatnot. I can also cancel that out if I didn't want to do that. I can also go in and adjust it. I can make it brighter or darker or brighter, right? I can adjust the contrast of that image, the saturation, how warm or, see, much warmer, more cold. See how the blues make it colder, the yellows make it warmer. You can do a lot of that stuff right in here. You can mark it up as well. You can write all over it, right? Maybe you want to go in and, make a little happy face. Something like that, whatever you feel like doing, right? And then you can go Command Z to undo it. So you have a Photos program built in as well. That's totally free. as well in Windows as well. And so you have all of these options that you can do, but the hardest thing is the inspiration, right? Is the understanding the principles of design. And that's what I'm just giving you the slightest intro in, because this is just to start your journey, everybody. You've definitely got to put in the time and effort to learn what all of these things are and what they mean. And learning all the tools over here, you only need some basic tools to get started. You need your pin tool so you can go in and, or your arrow tool so you can move stuff, basically your move tool. You can go in and select certain points and move those points around, called your anchor tool. You'll want to make squares. You'll want to make maybe perfect squares instead of rectangles, right? Hold down the Alt key, go from the center, hold down the Shift key to constrain, Control key. Even if you hold down the Alt key or Option key on the Mac, when you click, you can actually tell it how big of a rectangle you want. 500 by 500 pixel rectangle. Boom. Or square. There you go. We got an exact thing. Right there. And there we go. Come on out of there, you. There we go. I'll take all these other ones out. Just like that. So now we have a perfectly sized rectangle. Or you can tell it by inches, centimeters, millimeters, whatever measurement system helps you out. Like, say you're going to do a remodel of your house, right? Say this is so many inches by so many inches. You can do it at scale, right? So say your backyard is 90 feet by 50 feet, right? And so it would probably end up something like this because it's longer on one side and shorter on the other side. So 90 by 50. How would you do that? Well, you just do 1/4 of that value, or 1/25 of that value, or 1/100th of that value, right? And try to shrink it down to a smaller measurement. And then you could actually design it right in your 3D program. Say you wanted to, put your couch in, right? Just make a square for the size of your couch. And I want to put my couch right here, right? I want to put my couch there. I want to put my Xbox, which is going to be much smaller, right over here. I'm going to put my TV right over here next to my Xbox, which is going to be a super thin TV. I'm going to put that up on the wall. See? You can also use illustration programs for doing architectural stuff, for planning out things. I use it for all sorts of things, everybody. It's incredibly great. Just sometimes even to visualize stuff that I'm going to do in Photoshop or something that I'm going to do in a 3D program. I will visualize it or thumbnail it out first. Even if it's like a video, I'll go in and make a bunch of just simple thumbnails of shapes and sizes and camera angles and things that I want to do, and objects and the way I'm going to lay it out. Just simply like you were laying out a room, you would lay out the way that it looks. And they've been doing that in design for a long time. Just like when I'm doing an overlay, I will go through and use the guides to, block off certain areas where I don't want to put elements in, right? And if I want a star to pop up over here, I don't want it to pop up and end up over the top of, say, something like my credit thing up there at the top. Or maybe I do, because you could if you wanted to. But I try to avoid major interfaced elements when I'm playing a game. This way you guys can see what's going on where I am. And then I can also, you'll notice that I also move myself from time to time over to the side. So I'm over here lined up just like that. So you guys can see it over here. And then I can move myself back over here. And then I have myself actually in different parts in the screen where I can move where I don't cover up that thing so you guys can see it better. And that's a great thing of UI design or user interface design. That's what UI stands for. That's basically what you're doing when you're doing an overlay. You're doing a UI design. You're designing where elements are going to pop up, where they're going to go, where do they start, where do they finish if they're animated, things of that nature. Very, very great field of study, UI design as well. Another part of graphic design that you can learn. So that is the basic thing. Let me catch a little bit more on chat here. Have you played around with any of the AI tools in beta Photoshop? Yes, I have. Actually, that's what took me down the rabbit hole of AI. A great example is, say you want to go in and take me. Let's back up here over here. All right, so we want to take me right here. And I'm going to select the inverse, the outside, not me, but the inverse of me. And I can go to this thing called generative fill. Space background. And so what it's going to do is take the opposite, the backside, what I collected, and it's going to go ahead and put in a space background behind me, just like that. And it's pretty cool because it uses all the AI functions to make just a random, beautiful space background. That's it. That's all you have to do, everybody. You don't have to have a designer go in and airbrush that in, because that's how I would make that, with an airbrush. And airbrush that in. Boom. I actually really like that space background. That's really nice. And so basically what it did is it made the background, and you can see that it also has a mask over here. I don't know, maybe you can't see it. But there's actually a mask. Enter and select mask. Hold on, let me back out of there. Let me see if there's another way we can do this. Let's just select it. If we go to our channels, there we go. See, it made this kind of shape. The white being transparent, the black being solid. That's a mask. It's also called a channel, right? So anything that's black is going to be covered up, and anything that's white. You might also see things that are transparent in videos. When it's in a video, it's called an alpha channel. An alpha channel like this means that it's doing alpha, or making it transparent in the way that you work with it. And so that's the trick behind how that's working, where it filled in the rest of that stuff around me. So those are called generative fills. Now, if you want even something cooler, everybody, go check out ChatGPT now with DALL-E 3. And I've got that on the Discord for you guys to check out. You can go over there. There's a bunch of links over there. You can also use Bing. I know, Bing, the actual search engine, like Google, but like suckier. Actually really cool and free. So you can go up there and say, I want a cat riding a rocket while drinking a margarita with, rain coming down. And then, boom, it'll make that image for you. It'll just make it like this. Faster than any human could ever make that, everybody. The thing is, though, it doesn't always make exactly what you want. And so you have to iterate on it and kind of teach it what you want. See, when it starts thinking on its own, that's when we're in trouble. When it starts coming up with the concepts, see, we come up with the concepts as humans, it makes the concepts. When it comes up with the concepts, that's when you're in trouble, for sure. So there we go. How long does an average take you to do a thumbnail, Kiz? It can take me up to an hour, sometimes 2 hours, depending on if I don't like what I'm doing, right? See, doing something is easy. And you're like, well, Kiz, it's not easy. I don't know Photoshop. I don't know Illustrator. No, it's when you know what you want is what makes it easy. But when you don't know what you want and you're trying to come up with something different than you came up with before, and I could just use the same schedule over and over and over again, and sometimes I do for a while, and then I'll change it up a little bit, but you don't really know what you want. And that is the hardest part. The creative part is coming up and thinking up ideas. Now, AI is really great for that, right? Say I changed my mind. What do we want in the background here? Let's go ahead and say a tiger dancing with a rabbit. So now I'm going to tell it to put a tiger dancing with a rabbit back there. So that's the concept. I just came up with an idea. Tiger, race a rabbit. I think that's the best use of AI, is to help you think through ideas. There's a tiger. It didn't give me the rabbit, but there's a tiger dancing behind me. He's like my pet tiger. Look, and it looks like we're in the same shot, doesn't it? If I zoom in like that, it looks like there's a tiger in the shot with me. I think that's pretty incredible, everybody. That's human ingenuity. Now, they've taken the entire world's knowledge, which is on the internet, and did things called train it. They've trained the AI to make things like that, which is pretty incredible leap forward. Now, of course, for artists, you got to watch out if you're an artist now. And you just got to embrace new technology, everybody, because they can just generate stuff that would take humans many, many hours, thousands, hundreds of hours to do in an instant. Like normally you would pay a designer or pay an artist to make that for you. But now you can just generate it just like that. Now, the real question nowadays is who owns it? Who owns that artwork? Do I own that artwork because I just generated it? Does Adobe own that artwork because they're the one who generated it from their stuff? Or is it the people they're pulling that artist from, that artwork from, right? That's the real question. That's the real question that will be coming up in the future. But it's like Pandora's box, everybody. Once you open it, That's it. You can't put it back in the box now. It is now a thing. It is now part of being an artist. So again, if we wanted to do, let's say, a dance floor. Let's put a dance floor in there too, as well. Showing all the hard work behind all the graphics of your channel. Yes, I'm just giving you some basics of graphic design to get you started. Can you apply color instantly to code line? Yes, they're called hexadecimal colors. And that's how you can go and make sure that you have the same logo color here, and this designer can have the same thing, and everybody can have the same color across all of it. And that's why we use CMYK colors. That's why we use hexadecimal colors for the web. CMYK colors are used for print. RGB colors are used for the screen. Like RGB has a certain mix. There's also another one called HSB, which is up there, hue, saturation, and brightness. Another kind of the hue would be, you know, your actual colors. So say you'd want like a purple, and then you'd want a certain brightness level of that, or saturation level of that purple. Maybe not so much, maybe a little bit more. Great example is if we go into Illustrator and we make a bigger box so you guys can see those colors changing over here, and then I switched to hue, saturation, brightness. You can see I can switch the color just by rotating the hue, right? So that's hue. This is saturation, more blue, less blue. More blue, less blue, right? And you can get those variations in between. And then the brightness, how dark is the color, right? Does it add more darkness? Does it add no darkness? It's just like, that's how it is, right? And so you can adjust it through there. Now me, as a person who's been in print for a very long time, CMYK is my jam. So if I go into CMYK and I say, you know what, I want to make a green. So I know that cyan and yellow together makes green. If I want a red, I would go in and 100 yellow. And I just know those are called color mixtures. I just know that you can put those together. Now I got red. What if I want a purple? Well, let's take out the magenta, or leave in the magenta. Take out the yellow. And then we've got kind of a pinkish color. But if we add cyan, now we've got a purple in there. And then also we could make it more blue by just kind of taking this down. Or sorry, taking the magenta down. And then it's more blue. And this kind of a darker blue sometimes comes off as purple, depending on whether you're looking at the screen. But I know that that actually is going to be blue, not purple. How do I know? Because when it actually puts the inks down, the cyan and the magenta down, I know that's going to end up as a kind of a royal blue, right? A good combination of blue. But on a monitor, especially when it's being, done via video and then compressed video and then sent out to you guys from Twitch or whichever one you're watching me on, it will actually look a little bit more purple on the screen. So that's why I see when you're looking at it, you're seeing it more purple through the capture card. When I'm looking at it directly on my screen, it's actually more blue. Now, also, depending on your color variation of your eye, some people, of course, are colorblind. Some people have variations of colors. Like I'll see it one way, but you'll see it a different way. That's a big thing in the world. But as a designer, I could make this like an orange right here. Orange is one of those tough colors. If I make this orange, this may look more red to somebody, or maybe it'll look more yellow to somebody, or some people might make it see more green. But if you have your color mixes, you know you can have a good combination. Good color mix of orange, by the way, 100% yellow. And then around 75% magenta, because I know that. What if I do 30% magenta? Well, now it's more of a yellowish, kind of more of a goldish color. What about if I do the reverse? 100% magenta and then 30% yellow, right? You can barely see the difference, but it's there. Right? See, that's 100, that's 30, that's 70, right? And it's going to be, some of them are going to be subtle and some of them are going to be pretty obvious. Now, if I really wanted a purple, I would go 100% magenta and say 50 cyan. So actually less cyan, more magenta, and then a little bit of yellow in there. If I take the yellow out, cyan and yellow or sometimes are contaminant colors. See, if I take the yellow out right there, it makes a difference in how subtly it is or how dirty the color is. If I put 0 yellow, it's kind of a much more, and I'll zoom in a little bit. It's a much more bright color. Then if I put yellow in there, you can see it gets a little bit, I don't know if you guys can see that in your, I'll put it up even more, let's say 60. That it really makes a difference in how the actual color looks. over time for sure. But also you got to watch out for your color spaces up here. Up at the top it says RGB. If I was actually doing this in CMYK, I would be in CMYK mode. If I'm doing it for the internet, it'd be RGB mode. Same thing in Photoshop. When you're in Photoshop, it tells you right at the top what mode you're in, whether you're in RGB mode or in CMYK mode. What the heck is this? What the heck did it do? Somebody sitting in dance floor. That's what gave me dance floor. Oh, I forgot to invert it. Let's see. What else can we do? Spiral Galaxy. There we go. Again, generative AI is pretty fun. Yes, soon we'll see Kismet signs in space. There you go. It's like a cockpit of 7. Yes, my office is like that. It's there we go. Look, I made a spiral galaxy. Pretty cool, right? 787 aircraft with all those switches. Well, I got a lot of monitors and a lot of things going at the same time. Can you do AI prompts that interact with your original image, like you could ask it to make the tiger look like it's eating your head, or is it not there yet? You can actually do that with DALL-E 3. What you can do is upload the image and then tell DALL-E 3, make a tiger trying to eat my head, right? You can do it, but you'll find that there are limitations that you can do, right? You'd probably be better off just doing it from scratch than to actually have an image that I've found, but you can definitely do it. You can actually tell it to do a whole long thing. Now, when it comes to AI generation, you want to think of your different things that we were just talking about, your composition of your layout, right? So first, you're going to have like the style of what it is, right? Say you're having more Art Deco, or you're having 3D animation, or maybe it's going to be pencil drawings or sketch line work, maybe using little points and little dots, right? Called pointillism. Very cool. I learned that as a graphic designer so many years ago, everybody, in college, a long time ago. You had to make a picture from just doing a bunch of little dots, and then you'd make someone's face just from a bunch of little dots. You can still see it today if you Google it, a lot of that cool stuff. So you can do that, but you got to think about the composition. What style do you want it in, right? 3D animation, do you want it in watercolor, right? Think about the style. Think about the composition. Who's going to be in the center? Is it going to have text? It's going to have dogs, or is it going to have cats, or whatever. Like here, we could have corgi with dress on. Let's try that one. And so you can make it even more specific from a different angle, right? Think of your camera angle, 50 millimeters wide, 35 millimeter, 120 millimeter. Oh, we missed the sparkle dog, don't we? There we go. It says corgi in a dress, but you can't actually see it. I can just barely see the dress back here. But yeah, see a little corgi sitting behind me, everybody. That's pretty cool. I think that's amazing that AI does that. But again, the real question is, who owns that artwork? Do I own it because I just made it? Watch out for that, everybody. Watch out for copyright. You don't want to steal other people's stuff. There's nothing wrong with being inspired by other people's artwork and things of that nature, but you definitely don't want to go and steal stuff. Like, great example is I do something called super looting. I do the Kismet kill box and things like that. Now, if you started doing that stuff on your stream, that would be ripping off my stream, right? If I started acting like Dr. Disrespect, well, hey, I'd be ripping off his stream, or Tim the Tatman, or Shroud, or whatever. I do my own thing in my own way, right? Finding your own unique style is the hardest thing. And the best way to find your unique style is to find a style that you like, or learn a bunch of different styles, even better, and then find the thing that you like the most out of each of those different styles, and combine those styles in a way that's unique to you. Right? And you can find those styles. You can just go into Google and say different types of graphic design styles, right? Or graphic design, different type of styles, the basics of graphic design, the basics of color theory, the basics of printing, the basics of web design, and so on and so forth. You could go down a massive rabbit hole of all of that. But I've given you just the basics and got you going. Now, anybody have any other questions in there they want to ask me? Now's your chance. Feel free to ask any design questions that I feel like answering. Go right ahead. Now, don't forget to hit the follow button, everybody. Don't forget to show that love for this bonus stream where Kismet's going above and beyond over here, hooking you guys up starting you guys off on your design journey. Now, I wish I had somebody to tell me all of these things back in the day, everybody. I learned all of this the traditional hard way. The old school way where you learned it out of an encyclopedia, out of a book. You learned as you mentored under someone else who showed you all of these things. And would show you how to combine colors and what printing was. And I wanted to know everything. And I could tell you, we could go on for 50 hours, 100 hours, 500 hours. I could just keep going on and on about design, and we could be designing stuff and doing stuff. But I think that gives you a good overview without overwhelming you with too much stuff. And if I went through and showed you every single tool, at some point, it would just stop. You would stop caring. If I went in and showed you every single thing in Illustrator and every single thing in Photoshop, I feel like the concepts are always the most important. And lean into those first as a designer and as if you're going to create artwork. And it's okay to go in and Google search. Say you're trying to make a calendar. Say you're trying to make something like that. Go in there, Google search calendars. Don't steal other people's stuff. But go in and look and see what pieces you like. And say, oh, I like this from here, and I like this from here, and I like that from there. And then go ahead and make it uniquely your own. Right? That's the part that I do. My schedule is not a very basic schedule. If you see my schedule, and the reason why is because I'm a designer, so I like to have something a bit more fancy, right? And this takes time every single week to build it up and change the thing and update all of the stuff. And this will take me an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, sometimes to do stuff at the level I do, especially when I'm doing like events and things of that nature. Because I'll do a bunch of different artworks, right? I'll do a schedule, then I'll do a mini version of this, which goes down in my panels down below, down over here somewhere. There we go. Then I'll do a mini version that's down in my panels right here. And you can see I have a bunch of different panels that I've designed and whatnot. And sometimes I like put a border around it. Sometimes I do this. Obviously, I like to use a lot of color. In mine, I find a lot of people's panels are super boring. They're just something simple. But, you know, I got a little baby dragon there holding a little tip cup and whatnot. Always very, very fun as well. So again, now the thing also about graphic design, probably the most important thing that I think you got to understand about graphic design is the fact that it is very dependent on the person. Some people may look at your design and they say, that sucks. It's the worst, right? And some people will say, oh, that's great. I absolutely love it. And then some people will be like, meh, because they don't care. I don't care about design and whatnot. The most important thing is that your client likes it, right? I don't design stuff for other people that is for me. That's I like, right? I design it for them because they have a need for that thing, right? So whatever it is, it could be, you know, just a simple logo like on the side of my bottle here. That's a pretty simple logo, everybody. But somebody made a lot of money doing that logo right there. Right there. Sure did. They sure did. They made a big bunch of money. Like, you know, the Apple logo. Incredibly brilliant logo. Brilliant idea. It actually started, they actually had a Newton logo originally, and then they made it the Apple. And then, of course, you know, Apple Records, which is the Beatles. They had a big old thing between them. And so on. And so you could have other things. What do I got over here? Oh, I got a good one over here. Label. Hold on. Orville Redenbacher's popcorn. You're like, Kismet, why do you got that at your desk? Because I make popcorn, air pop popcorn. But yeah, so we got Orville Redenbacher's. What do we got? We've got our circle, which is our shapes. We've got our shape down here. Notice, look, it's got that edge, those rounded edges like an old ticket, original, right? So you got your red text on a yellow background because those are complementary colors. You've got all the colors here. You got all these little things, by the way, all these little things at the bottom. Notice the shapes. It's a rounded shape. And then you have more rounded shapes at the bottom there. You start look at things based on their shapes and how they are, right? Now, I've made labels for this stuff, everything. You've named it. I've done every type of design you can do. I have 100% achievement in real life, everybody, in graphic design, not just in gaming, which is awesome, I think, because I was absolutely obsessed with it when I was young. I did everything I could possibly get my hands on, from t-shirts to billboards to you name it. Just any type of design you could possibly do, like logos and things like this, like Ron and John's surfboards. Not their surfboards exactly, but logos like that. And so on. So it's really what you want to do. It's how you want to produce stuff, right? That's in your style. What is your style? You probably don't know. You don't know that this is your style of design because you don't have enough experience. So what you might want to do is go try to make this label in your computer. How could you make it? Well, the first thing I would do is scan it, because nowadays you can just take a picture with your phone. Back in the day, we didn't have, the scanners cost $250,000 to scan it in high quality. But you can just take a picture of it with your phone. Now, remember, it's going to be rounded, so it's not going to be flat. Now, if I take this off of here, see if I can find it. Let me see if I can get this off of here. I'm going to try to tear it off of here. The thing about everything that's on an object, I can tear this off the front of here. There we go. Everything that's on an object that is shaped like this was originally printed like this, flat. And then it was wrapped around there and glued on there, like that, right? So the person who designed this designed it flat. And they designed this part. And then notice the shape here, the square. You got your barcode, so it can be scanned, and all the information. They designed it all flat in a program like InDesign. They did this in Photoshop. They had someone do all the photography of their popcorn. They had the logo and whatnot. They put it in there. They got this white text with a drop shadow. And I'll put it up there closer so you guys can see. You get the idea that that was all done flat and then wrapped around this object when the stuff was being put in there, and then they put the labels on, because some engineer figured out how to make a whole assembly line of making different popcorn right there. So pretty cool. Did you do video game artwork? Absolutely. I did a lot of stuff for Interplay. You know, that tiny little company that made that one game, Fallout? And also 3 Vikings, Out of This World or something like that. I forgot the name of that game. Really fantastic game, though. Man, that's a really old game. As well as just a massive amount. Hundreds of thousands of projects I've done, everybody. Because the way we work is either they would send in the project already pre-done, or we would design it from scratch. And so I would be in the middle of designing stuff, and then they would bring something in, and they'd say, hey, I got this record for Motown or Capitol Records or whatever, and we've already got the artwork. We just got to get it prepared to go out to print, right? So they bring it in, I prepare it, get it out to film. That film would then be sent off to the printer. Then they would print it, and they put it on the CD label, or they put it on the record, or whatever it was going to. They still made records in those days, everybody. They still do today. People love records. So it's like their thing because of the fidelity of those records are still good. But yeah, I've done so much. You do better at C+ programming than this? Well, there you go. This is a very subjective thing. Design is difficult. And the most difficult thing about it is that you almost feel like you're giving up a part of your soul or a part of yourself when you're really struggling to come up with a different, unique design. That is just your own design and not just looks like everybody else's. Everybody else's schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then they have their time. I find that incredibly boring. This one has a lot of information. Sometimes can be overwhelming for some people. Some people are like, I can't admit too much. But it has all of the different pieces and parts that I want. I wanted to say, this is my schedule, right? So, go back to my other tool. I wanted to say, this is my schedule. So this is one section. Hold on. I use Mac more often, so I often click the wrong keys. There we go. So I wanted to have a header, right? This is called a header. Kismet's Mega Stream Schedule. It's got my logo. It's got who I am. Entertainer, full-time streamer, gamer, artist, right? And then all of my, kind of accolades. I'm a Twitch partner, YouTube partner, and so on and so forth. Social media in there. How to find me on social media. Kismet BP. Right over here. And so these are all the various social medias that I got going. Actually, I need to add the Kick logo in there now. And so on. And so you can find me, Kismet BP, at all of these different ones, right? So it's got that in there. And then, of course, the time, what game I'm playing, and so on and so forth. That goes with that. And then each section has a purpose and has stuff there for a reason, like my sponsors over here, Bethesda Gear and Lucid Sound, which you guys can go go and help support them sponsors. They are awesome. Appreciate them. And so on, right? So you're trying to convey information. You're trying to combine different symbols to visualize something for someone else, right? That's what you're trying to do. And they do that same thing in composition, like say you are doing like the Starfield poster here. These are just combining a bunch of different things, right? You've got Vasco there. You've got a bunch of different people in there. There's some sort of light shining up there. You've got the ship in the thing right there, right? The ship's coming up through there. These are a whole bunch of various different symbols they've combined together to give a certain feeling, a certain thing. Like one of my favorites is this one here. When you're looking at Dogmeat and Dogmeat is looking back at you, there's like an emotional response there, right? Like he's like, let's go, Dogmeat. And then, you know, you've got the empty road out in front of you, and that's compositing, right? You're compositing the shot, you're compositing or designing your layout. They do it quite often in a lot of ones right here. So you've composited this, right? You're trying to get that parade feel. So what's in a parade? Well, you got cars, you got people walking, you got balloons, you got confetti coming down. It's like going down a street like in the middle of New York or something. And so you're thinking about that composition of how you're doing that. Same thing with graphic design. You're thinking about your composition. Now, am I the world greatest designer, everybody? I wouldn't say so. I would say I'm good, occasionally great, most of the time good. And that's because I love doing it. If you love something, you find that you're a bit better at it. And again, now I'm just passing the torch to you guys. Now it's your turn. It's your time to take it and go on. I don't do graphic design for other people anymore. I've done it. I'm retired from doing it for other people. Now what I do is bring a little joy and positivity into people's day here on the stream. That's what I do. There you go. Did you work for Interplay? I knew some people from the Fargo days. Yes, all the way back. All the way back when they first started. Battle chess in the early 90s through the late 90s when Fallout came out. I was absolutely obsessed with Fallout. Imagine watching Star Wars 2 weeks before everybody else did, and you're trying to explain it to people. Look, it's this amazing thing. It's Star Wars, and they're jumping, and they got lightsabers, and all the people are like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. That's like trying to explain Fallout to people. Yes, exactly. Again, I didn't work on the game, everybody. I work on the art, right? The art that goes on the boxes and that kind of stuff, right? That's what I do. I don't go in there and program the game, and I don't work on artwork that goes in the game. I worked on the packaging art, is what that's called, and worked on T-shirts and designs, and you name it. Now, I've done everything. I've done all of the things that you can do. So, yeah, long time ago. Now, I didn't work for Interplay. I worked for a pre-press shop that Interplay brought their materials to, or they would ask for us to design stuff for them, right? So I didn't work for them directly. I worked for a pre-press and printing house, which is basically a graphic design house. So you do graphic design. You also have other people that come in, because it was in the transition stage, everybody. You used to do everything by hand, right? You would get your text output on a typesetter. Then you would get your photos shot on a big camera, and you would get them duplicated, either if they're black and white or color, and then you would compose them together with film by hand. Everything was done by hand. You'd cut out a little rubylith, and you would put a mask in there, and you put your photo in there, and you'd line everything up with a X-Acto knife and a T-square, and you'd be doing. I did all of that, everybody, way back in the day. I learned it the old traditional style way. And then, of course, computers came out, and then they started doing everything in computers. Now, in those days, like, you have a 40 megabyte side quest, everybody, and one image would fit on that one thing. It was quite an undertaking to do anything in the computer, because it just did not have enough storage, and it didn't have enough horsepower to compete with doing it by hand. But over time, it did. It started to transition to where the computers got faster and more powerful so that they could do those things. And even computers that cost, $100,000, $250,000, which I worked with, I worked on the desktop end with, the Macs and PCs, and they worked on the big Chromacoms, the big Cytex machines, the big high-end pre-press machines, which did all of the really high-end layout, and it could do it in full resolution, where you couldn't do it on the desktop in full resolution. Like if you opened up like this Illustrator file back then, it would take 45 minutes for it to open. This right here. And you could only open it in this mode. Yeah, you'd only open it in this mode. You'd make all your changes. and then you go into preview mode, and then that would take like 20 minutes to preview. Yeah, that's how long it took. When you printed something out, take like an hour and a half just to print out a color print. I know it's like 2 minutes now, 5 minutes now, but in those days everything was so incredibly slow. The computers, of course, it was super fast for those days, but for now it's like nothing. Your phone has more power in it than any computer that's been made in the last 30 years. It's got more power than those old school computers from 30, 40, or really 20 to 30 years ago. For sure. And anything that ever came before that, for sure. Yes, I did. For many years, I worked for Apple. Yep. It actually was, I worked in corporate. I was a senior tech, and I worked from home. So I didn't have to go anywhere. I worked from home in my office. And I work with some of the top people in the world, everybody. It's incredibly amazing peeps. I did a lot of blackout projects that I can never talk about because when I signed that NDA, that NDA is for life, bro, because some of those projects still haven't come out yet. Yeah, even though I haven't worked there in a decade. Some of those projects they're still working on. Yeah, big time. So yeah, I was very lucky. It's like there's like the techs, there's the senior techs, and then there's like the super top techs of the whole entire company. I was being fast-tracked to be that super top tech, but sadly I got sick. I got ill, got sleep apnea and a really bad constant vertigo, and it's never gone away. 9 years. Still have the same problem. And I've already gone to all the doctors and done all the things and did the, CPAP and all of that stuff. And it's helped me a little bit, but there we go. Yes. Please share. Well, I don't think they're ever going to expire, and I would rather not be sued out of existence. So there you go. I think even if they come out with it, I still wouldn't be able to talk about it. Ever. But they said I can say that I did the stuff. They just said I couldn't say exactly what it was that I did, if you know what I mean. But yes, I've been very lucky in that way. Very lucky in my career. And of course, I've been using computers forever, since they came out in the late 70s, early 80s. I've used them all. From the Apple II to the Timex Sinclair to the old Commodores, the Amigas, all of them. I've used super gigantic supercomputers like Cray supercomputers and things like that. Sun microsystems like, gigantic network computers. I've done all of those things. Again, I've been pioneering all of that for the last 30 years. I've been very, very lucky to just been there when that stuff happened. There we go. Yes, it was amazing to work there. Yeah, I can't tell you exactly where I worked or what I did because, again, NDA. Can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you I was a senior tech. That I can tell you. There you go. Because I don't want to get busted. I don't want to get in trouble. Ever. And I would still be working there today, but I would have never became a streamer if I didn't get sick. Because I loved it. I absolutely lived for it every single day. It's a little sad. It's a little sad when I think about it. But sometimes fate is trying to tell you something, everybody. You spend the rest of your life, solving technical problems and coming up with different concepts, or would you spend the rest of your life trying to bring a little joy and positivity, entertainment to people's day? I don't know. Sometimes the ego in you wants to do these amazing life-changing and world-changing things, and then, the other part of you thinks that, making people laugh and enjoy themselves, and maybe they learned something today. Maybe that's what you should be doing. Maybe that's more valuable in your life, right? For me, I just try to get another day. I just try to get up, spend another day, everybody. Get up and do the much as I can do here on this planet. Because my time is winding down. My clock is starting to wind down at 53, everybody. And I'm noticing that a lot of people that I knew and a lot of famous people that I've known over the years are gone. Those people are gone who were 50, who were 40, who were 30. People I've known, I've grown up with, now gone, right? Parents and grandparents, gone, right? All of that happening over time. That's telling you that your time is running down too, because nothing lasts forever. This is a machine that you are operating here, and this machine will eventually wear out and be done. So keep that in mind. Enjoy every minute, as what I say, because you might end up tomorrow. You might end up like me, where you can barely walk sometimes. You can barely get around. You get scared when you're going up and down stairs because you feel like you might fall and that'll be it, and then you die, right? You might have sleep apnea like me. When you go to sleep, you stop breathing. And so one night you could just go to sleep and not wake up tomorrow, right? It changes your whole perspective on life. All that other BS that you were worrying about, money and having fancy things and, what other people think, all that stuff goes away. All that stuff goes away when you realize that you only got a limited amount of time left and none of that other bull crap means anything. Just do what you love to do. You answer to no one. Make something positive in the world, though. Make it something positive. That's what I try to do. Yes, I did work from home. Here in Tennessee. Yeah, I moved to Tennessee, and then the funny irony is I moved away from California, and then moved to Tennessee, and then got a job working with them. And again, I work with some of the top people in the world. I mean, they exceptionally good. Now, the great thing about working with really great people is they elevate you. They should anyway. They should elevate your quality of work because they are so good at what they do, and you want to be great at what you do. And so I really, really like that, to be elevated. And I always love to be into technology and learning about technology, and then also being into design and art and animation and 3D architecture and whatnot. I love all of those things. I also love the water. Anything to do with the water, whether it's surfing or whether it's just swimming or boogie boarding or going sea-dooing or being in a boat. Anything to do with that, right? The best way to find out whether what you want to do in life is two ways. There's two ways to do it, right? There's one that you discovered early, like I did. I went and saw a press where it was printing a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, whoa, what is that thing? Oh, that's a printing press. What they're doing is they're putting the ink onto the paper. Oh, really? What's that all about? And then I saw some people sitting in another room over there, and I'm like, what are those people doing in that air conditioning room over there? And they're like, oh, they're the ones who make the designs that go onto the press. And I'm like, I want to be in that nice, comfy room over there. And so thus, I became a graphic designer. But I also studied architecture, studied all sorts of stuff, everybody. And of course, pioneered computers because my parents had a computer. They had an Apple II. And then I got a Commodore 64 as a kid and learned a bunch about that as well. Now, I did programming, and I can still do programming to this day, but man, it puts me right to sleep. And that's okay. It's okay if you don't like that thing that everybody else likes, and it's okay that you like something different than I like. That's okay. We don't have to all like the same things, and that's good because you got some people who love programming. It just is their most favorite thing, and that's okay. And then you got people who do that, and then you got people who do the other side, who do graphic design and do all the things that they like to do. And that's good because you want to have a good balance between people. You don't want everybody to be doing the same thing and be exactly the same person. How boring is that? Then you don't have anybody to bounce ideas off of and all of that. So you could have the designer who's designing the one side. He's coming up with all the graphics. And then you got the programmer who says, oh, well, I can only do this. I can do that. And that's going to limit the size of your design. I was like, well, I made this design. And they're like, well, wait a minute. I can't make that work in a dang. Or maybe, to make that work, I got to do this thing and that thing, right? So that collaboration, I find, is the most amazing thing. It elevates everything that you do. It elevates your design. Now, sometimes working with clients is really annoying because they're like, make the logo bigger. They're like, why don't I just make the logo the size of the page and then say, buy my stuff? Clients are funny sometimes. There we go. Glad you found your place as a streamer. Always enjoy the streams, no matter the topic. Well, thank you. Thank you. Again, these are bonus streams that I do. Like I've also done ones on 3D, basics of 3D in Blender, which is a total free program. And of course, I've showed you here a bit in Photoshop and Illustrator, and also showed you some free programs in which you can try out the same thing. Just kind of got you started on those things. And again, if you want to know more about graphic design, start by just saying, what are the essentials of graphic design? Right? And always think concepts first, programs second, right? Remember, these are just tools. Mac, PC, consoles, whatever. They're an ends to a means, right? Like this phone, I don't care if it's an iPhone or if it's an Android phone. Does it allow me to call my peeps? Does it hold my phone numbers in there, right? To me, it's a wrench or a screwdriver, right? You don't see people going around and say, my number 2 pencil is better than your number 2 pencil. Who cares? Does it right? Does it do what you want it to do? Then that's the right one for you. Again, even though I worked for Apple for many years, I don't care. I don't care what kind of device you have. The only thing is, does it work and does it do what you want it to do? That's the important part. And if it doesn't, then it's not the right tool. You got to go get a different tool. If you're trying to take a screw out of a thing, you need a screwdriver. You could use a wrench. You could go in there and you could wrench the size of it and do the whole wrench thing. But man, that'd be so much harder. Why would you do that? I mean, some people will, but you just go in there, use a screwdriver, bam, or even better, little powered screwdriver, even faster, get her done. Now, of course, watch out when you're doing powered screwdrivers because you can screw stuff up. That's why they have that little setting on your screwdriver, by the way. Have you never seen that setting that goes around the outside on some powered screwdrivers? Because you can turn it down so that it doesn't just drill the screw right through the drywall, right into the wall. Yeah, watch out for that, everybody. Oh, man, there's so many topics we can go on to. Yeah, Windows 95, I was there. Yeah, even before Windows 95 came out. Windows 95 was a complete ripoff of the Mac operating system, which was a complete ripoff of the system from Xerox. Yeah, the people who make copiers. They came up with this interface, everybody, with a graphical interchange, graphical user interface. They came up with the menus, and they came up with the mouse, and they came up with all of that stuff. And Apple stole it from them, and Microsoft stole it from Apple. Exactly what they did. Yep, and we still use it today, 35 years later. Pretty amazing if you think about it. That's such a revolution in those days. Because back in those days, you would actually type. Some of you remember. Put a 1 in the chat if you guys remember this. You know, when you do the old, they was /run, and then you would run your program, and then it would load the program into memory, and then you could go in there and do different commands to get it to load up. You know, back in those days, we used cassette tapes, too. Before they had floppy disks, there was cassette tapes you would use. And they had paddles before they had joysticks back in the day. Yeah, you remember that. You remember it back in the day where you had to use DOS commands. Do you know that Microsoft still has DOS running under Windows? Still to this day, 35 years later. They still have DOS running under it. They never got rid of DOS, everybody. It's still there. It's just ridiculous. Yes, there we go. MS-DOS was your favorite thing? Well, there you go. See, some people was totally into it. They're into that kind of stuff, and they're into programming and all that things. You got to find your thing. That's the hardest thing. Find your thing that you love to do. How do you know you love to do it? When you sit down and you're going to make a layout, right? Like when I'm doing this here, when I change this and I go in and say, okay, what am I playing this week? Well, this week I'm going to play Satisfactory, and I'm going in and changing this around. To me, when I'm doing it, a few minutes have gone by. Feels like just a few minutes to me. But all of a sudden, it was 3 hours that went by like that. Just like when you're playing a video game, right? You get a new game, you're really excited about it, you load it up, it's 5 p.m., then all of a sudden your alarm's going off on your phone, and you're like, oh my God, I got to go to work in an hour because it's now 5 a.m., right? You know what I'm talking about. All you gamers out there know what I'm talking about. That's how you know you love that thing. Now, sometimes it's going to be a hurdle. Sometimes it's going to be struggle. You can't kind of get the design. You don't like it. And I'm the type of person that I'll work on something like a video or whatnot. Like I'm working on my videos right now. I'll work on them for like 20 hours and not like it. And I'll delete the whole entire thing. I'll delete the whole thing out. Say, I don't like it. Gone. 20 hours gone. Like that. And just start over. Why? Because I don't want it to be crap. I don't want it to be junk. I want to keep iterating on it until I get it. And sometimes the best way to iterate on something, like when I'm redoing my schedule here, what I'll do is I'll just do this. Delete it all. Start again. Put the stuff down. Now what? Do different shapes, right? Start different shapes. Maybe I want to do some rounded shapes in the corner. Maybe I want to put my logo up there in that corner right there, right? Maybe I want to go in and put my header on this side this time, right over here. Now, of course, on Twitch, there's a whole blocker thing that pops up that comes along here. Oh, my things aren't outlining. Hold on. Let me go put some borders on them. There we go. So maybe I got to watch out for the Twitch thing that pops up when I'm offline. So when I'm offline, there's a thing that pops up on the side there that shows you a bunch of videos for the next thing when I'm not on. And so if I'm going to do my schedule, I don't want it to overlap too much of my schedule. So that's why I actually have it offset the way I do, because I think of that stuff. I think of who it is, who's going to be looking at it, where are they going to be looking at it? Are they going to be looking at it on my Twitter? They're going to be looking at it on my Twitch. They're going to be looking at it on Kick or wherever. And so I look for things that will be obstructing or interfering with my design. So again, I could say, okay, header's going over here. I'm going to have my logo there. Maybe I want my name super big, Kismet, across there, which is a little too egotistical, I think. And then maybe I just wanted to say Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday right here. And then have some sort of collage, down here of all the different games along there. So how would we start that? Well, first thing we would need to do is I would actually go into a new file like this. Paste that in there, and I would revert this so we don't lose this. Let's revert this back. Saved. There we go. And I would grab all these elements, and I would bring them over to this new one, like this. And this is called the pasteboard over here. The gray area is pasteboard, and this is your artboard in the center. And so I would go in, I would paste that stuff in there. You can see I have a bunch of different stuff in there, like Fallout Shelter events, because I was doing Fallout Shelter a while ago. These are all the different events that are going on in Fallout over here, and the different stuff that I use in that design. But I would go ahead and take all this stuff out just right now. There we go. And I would put this off to the side and start to reevaluate those elements, right? So I would then take this, move it over here, and put that in there, and then maybe I want this to be a mask. So I'll change that. I'll copy this. I'll put this in front. Just give you a little idea of what can be done. And then now I've masked it. See the bottom part, how that's a perfect circle? I hit Control-7, and I've masked that edge. And now that stays with it. So there we go. So maybe I want my name up real big. We'll take that. Right there. Now see how I just use boxes to generally get the shapes and sizes of where I want stuff to be. Maybe I want to say schedule over here. Big schedule. Maybe down there. See, there I go. That's when I start doing design right there. When I start saying, nah, I don't like that. Maybe something like this. And then maybe some of this stuff. Actually, let's do this. They got a great thing where you can lock stuff. Control-2 to lock in Illustrator. And then now I can just grab this whole thing and say, put it in here. And then this is the basics of design. Now, I would probably put that on 2 separate lines. Maybe grab this blue again for the schedule. Run this down maybe to there. Remove this, and so on. So now we've done a whole different type of design, right? We've gone in and used our different photos. We've used our shapes. We've used our text and graphics to change the whole entire style of the whole entire thing. And again, this is what design is all about, using those elements. And then, of course, also using positive and negative space. See how that's hanging over the side? That's a positive and negative space thing. If I move it to exactly there, well then, great, it lines up. But if it pops out the side, it looks a little bit different, right? It gives it a little bit more style and whatnot. And again, we can just keep going. We can design the whole thing out and just remove it around and do whatever we want to do, right? That's how I would start. Start with that blank slate. Do what you want to do. Like I could go and grab these photos right over here. Put those in here. Like this. And then grab this photo. And put that in the center. And Alpha 21 here. And like that. Now, how am I going to get these all to line up? Well, I'll use the square that I created, right, or create another one. There's a square back behind there, and I'm going to Control-3 to hide that. Control-C, Control-X to get rid of it, Control-Alt-3 to bring it back, Control-V to paste it in the front. And now what I can do is I can use this as a mask. So I can just go Command-7. And now this is being cut off by that rectangle that I made. And then I can go in and say, you know what? I'm going to take this, copy, X to cut it out, click on this photo, Control V to, or Control F to paste it in the front. And now you can see this being cut off by that square as well. Same thing over here, Control C, Control X, click on this photo, Control V, because it's pasting it within that mask. It's pasting it inside that, in that rectangle. And if I move it, you can see that it gets cut off by that mask that it's doing. So I could do that. I could also go in and create a sub mask for each of them. I can also control the layering by taking this out and say, you know, paste that behind that, like that, Alpha 21. Now you're like, well, Kismet, what happens if this one is not quite right? Well, you go up here, and I'm going to paste this in the front separate, and then say I want to do something more at an angle. So say we'll do something for the square here, and we can get that point. There we go. And we'll go ahead and move this point in. So I can go ahead and cut it in half like that. Or even better idea, just take out the point. Just take out that anchor point. It's going to let me. Oh, that's got to be, it's too close. It's on the photo itself. So it's trying to get the photo's point. All right, try it over here. There we go. And so now we've got this shape. And so we can take that shape and say do something like that, make it into a mask, Control 7. Now we got that shape, and these two things are now combined. We Control cut that, and then we paste that in front of this one, and look at that. Now it's got double cut off. See, it's cut off from the mask that I used over the top of it, and then I pasted in the other mask, and now it's double cut off at the top and the bottom. And then I could take the Alpha 21 here and paste that behind this. If it's going to let me. I think it went way behind it. Let's say behind this. There we go. And then I can slide that in there. And then see, now I've got that angle. Now I can actually go back and adjust this. Because I can click on that edge. And I can adjust that edge as well. If I click on this edge here, I can move it. And adjust how it goes. I can make it into a rounded object. I could make it go like this, maybe, straight down. So it's more like a triangle. That's called masking. I can click the whole thing and move the mask over like that. There's just so much you could do, everybody. It's just so wide open just based on your imagination. I could add points. Come on. Sometimes it's Windows not being precise. I can adjust the angle of this a little bit more with these other points. I can make it like this, or we're just getting just the eyes pointing this way. And maybe like this, like this. And again, this is, and then you can modify the way it sits in there, the way it crops the photo. You go down that rabbit hole, everybody, of design all day long. I feel like it's always a smarter idea to have a general idea of what you want first before you begin, because you could spend endless amount of time. You could spend 50 hours trying to come up with a new design, and you didn't go in and box it out first. You didn't go say, okay, I want this to start here, and this to start here, and this to start there, and that start there. I do a lot of hand sketches where I'll say, okay, this is going to be like this, and then this shape will be here, and this will make this shape out of that. Everything is a shape. Remember, it's representing a certain shape and a combination of shapes in there as well. So that gives you a great idea. There we go. Don't you do all your graphics on your Mac? I used to. Yep, I don't anymore. I actually am doing it on my PC now. I'm doing it on my new PC. There we go. There we go. There you go. All right. Well, that's it. Any other questions? Any last questions, everybody, before we head on out of here? Let's not save any of those. Now's your chance to get your graphic design questions in. There we go. Have you ever drawn a thing like that? I do it all the time. I have literally hundreds of sketchbooks that I've sketched designs out on. Always a better idea because the sketching limits you in the amount of time that you really want to spend sketching. I find it, so when I'm sketching something out, I'll, start with a rectangle, right? The shape of, say, the screen here, right? 1920 by 1080 or 720 by whatever. But really, I go 1920 by 1080 because that's the standard size that I use and the standard video size that I use. And so I'll sketch something out. Say I'm going to use something for a video. I'll sketch it out and get the proximity of objects, the size of those shapes, and what those shapes are going to be. Sometimes even colors. I'll visualize those colors. But the thing is after so many years of doing this, everybody, you use the power of your daydreaming to your advantage. Like I could build this whole entire thing in my head. I can just sit there and see it in color in my head. And what I do is I kind of zone. I don't see anything in front of me. Like if I did it right now, this is me visualizing stuff in my head. Like right now, I'm doing a layout for this schedule, and I'm visualizing it in my head. I don't even see anything, everybody. It's like going into your mind and using your mind as your sketchboard. And if you can do that, that's a powerful skill. I thought everybody could do it, everybody. Apparently, not everybody can. Since I was little. So that's the thing. Would 4K design be harder? Not necessarily. It just takes more space and is larger in general. But you have your 16 by 9 ratio. So I could make this into 4K. I could just easily scale it up. But if I was going to do stuff in 4K from now on, I would build everything at 4K first, right? This way, if you're saving it as maximum quality. Now, if I blew this up to 4K, right? Like we could look up what 4K is. Now, 4K is different for a whole bunch of people, everybody, just so you know. Manufacturers are saying sometimes this is 4K and this is 4K. But let's go ahead and get our dimensions for 4K. For 4K graphic design sizes, that's what I'm looking up. It's 3840 by 2160. So say I wanted to make this thing 4K. So I'm going to go New File. I'm going to go over here to Width and say 3840 by 2160. Oh, come on, fingers. One artboard is what I'm going to do. It's going to be in a landscape orientation, so it's going to be wider than it is tall. This would be portrait. This would be landscape. And then, of course, what's my color mode? RGB. It's going to be on screen because it's going to be either in a video or on my schedule or website or whatever. That's the screen size. For print, you'd want 300 dpi for images and up to 2400 dpi if you're really high quality for text. Really 600 dpi if you're putting it out on your laser printer. But if you're doing it for a book, it would be actually 2540 dpi. I know, that's a lot. But text should be much higher because it makes it more legible. And so I would do that right there. I would just do this, and then I would take all of this stuff that's my schedule here. I'll just highlight all of that. We'll copy it. We'll paste it, and you're going to see that, see, it's a smaller size. But if I just take it and scale it up, it'll scale up to that 4K size, just like that. Now, everything that was a vector art, that was just lines and circles and squares, like you saw when I went into this mode. Great example, like the Fallout 4 logo here. It's going to look awesome. It's going to look amazing, right? No matter how much we zoom into it, it's still nice and clean and straight line. That's the vector art, right? Points and lines, right? Not little pixels. Little pixels, not so much. The more you blow that up, right, the more of those little pixels you're going to see, and the more of this kind of stuff you're going to see, all right? So what would I do? I'd go find a photo that was much higher quality, and these are all actually really high quality, because you can see I can zoom way in, everybody. I try to be much higher quality and then be up higher and then use it lower, right? So I would go find a photo that was much larger and has a higher quality to start with, and then shrink it down to the 4K size. So maybe an 8K photo or even a 4K photo would be better than using a 1080 photo, right? So definitely want to start with your highest quality artwork that you can. But there you go. Now, there is a slight difference I can see between 4K because I can see that the actual size of it here is not Get my rulers up. Reset my rulers back. Is not perfectly lining up. There we go. Got to scale it down a little bit. But again, make sure to build everything at its highest quality first. Unless you're using vector stuff, like see these logos right here? These little logos here are pictures. How do I know? Well, if I zoom in, you can start to see along the S. See how it's not super clean? All right, not super clean on those S's. And that's because it's a pixel-based art. You see that? That means it's done in Photoshop or it was a photo at some point. But if I take an S and I put an S there, and I make that super large as a font, or basically all it is a vector graphic. That's what fonts are, by the way. They are vector graphics. When you're putting it in your computer, someone went in and made that S. They illustrated the S, and then they turned it into a font. That's what they did. So you can see that that S looks a lot better, doesn't it? Because that's a vector-based one, and I can change it to any size I want, and the edge of it stays super smooth. And that's why you use those two different types. So if you learn just that, you're set. Now, again, one last thing before we go is your different formats. And that is, look at that corgi. I just love it. It's so good. Generative AI there, everybody. So when you save this out of here, you would save it in its native format. In this case, it would be Photoshop, or if I was using GIMP over here, you could go File, Save As, and then you could save it in its native format, which is an XCF, or in Photoshop, it'd be a PSD for Photoshop document. That's what PSD stands for. And then if you wanted it to be opaque, if you wanted it just to be a square image and you're not going to use any transparency at all, then you would use a JPEG, right? JPEG, the reason why people use JPEGs is because it compresses the size of the file, right? It'll compress it down, means it loads faster, especially on the internet or whatever. It shows pretty much, it doesn't lose that much quality. It loses a little bit of quality, especially if you keep saving it over and over again. Save it as a JPEG and then open that up and save it as a JPEG and so on. But you want to keep your original Photoshop document or GIMP document or whatever it is. And this way you always have that original quality, and then you save it out into the different formats, right? So in this case, I would save this as a JPEG, and then it would have just a square and then have the background in there. If there was no background in there, if it was transparent, then when I saved it as a JPEG, it would fill in the background with white, right? And that white would be opaque. So if I put it over something else, it would not be transparent. Now, if I wanted it to be transparent, say I just want to put me out like that, right? I would crop this down first, by the way. Great little trick. Control-click on the layer. And then you get your selection around there. Then you go to the image menu, crop. And there we go. Now we got just that. And then this, I would just save as a PNG. Right over here. Easy. Just PNG, save it out. And then it would be transparent. And then I could bring it into like Illustrator. And then it wouldn't have that square around the outside. And that's all you really need to know. Now, there are 10,000 different formats in here, everybody, and I can tell you what every single one of those formats are for. Absolutely. I've used every single one for different reasons. Like way back in the day, I used to use the Cytex CT to go to the big Cytex systems, the prepress systems back in the day. WebP is a new one, by the way, Web Picture. That's from Google. There's also ones that are for video as well. We'll do that in a different one when we talk video, maybe at some point. GIF files are more for animation files, but you could also use it as a still file too, just as much. The thing about GIF files is they have a very limited color palette. So you have, your 256, your 16 colors, very, very limited color palette, but it makes the files much smaller than it did before. I used to have a card. It cost around $10,000, and all it did was save JPEGs, because we would have gigantic photos. And we'd open them up. It'd take like an hour and a half to open them up. Then you would do whatever you need to do, and then you would save them, and it would take like an hour and a half to save them, giant posters. And then they came out with JPEG. And so we had a card that would just compress them down so all of our files weren't so incredibly massive back in the day. Because you got to think, they had like, 200 megabyte hard drives. And you have like a, 150 megabyte image. That's taking up 3/4 of your hard drive. Yeah, that's where that came about. And then they have other things in there like Photoshop Raw and things like that. That's like native format with no compression. Very good for photographers. So if you're doing photography, of course, you want to have your highest quality product, right? You want to save it in its highest quality so that you could use it in all these different sizes, especially very large sizes. And then, of course, you could then save it out as different copies, but you want to keep the original. Keep the original. Like all the stuff that I'm doing, I keep the originals. That's why I have the PSD files. This is a PSD file. It's got all the layers, allows me to come back and turn layers on and off and adjust stuff and do things with it and move me around here if I wanted to. Maybe I want to be on that side. Allows me to come back and adjust it as well. Now, once you save it as a JPEG or you save it as a PSD, or well, not PSD, a PNG, it compresses it all down into a single file. You don't have your layers anymore, right? Now, in pre-press and printing, we actually used another format called TIFF. Now, TIFF is a combined format that has no compression, right? So it's not compressed down like a JPEG. Now, it's probably not used as much, but it is definitely still used in pre-press and printing. So if you wanted to have an image that you went in and made a bunch of modifications to, but you didn't want to send the Photoshop file because it was too large, you would save it as a TIFF and it would compress it down, and then that image would be used to output to image setters and would output to film and to print. So that's typically used in printing and publishing. But really, for the internet, for most of the things that you do nowadays, JPEG, PNG. That's it. If you're doing some 3D animation and things like that, we used to use Targa files. Targa files allow you to have a transparency in it. So when you're doing 3D animation and things like that, you have transparency. You can use PNGs now, not even have to worry about it. Just use those two setups. And again, we could go down the rabbit hole for endless hours, everybody. Endless hours. So there you go. With 16 by 10 and 16 by 9 plus room for captions. Yes, whenever you're doing captions, you can actually do that in Illustrator, by the way. When you're going in to do something, you can actually go in and say, like, film video. And if you're going to go, say, you're going to do 1920 by 1080, you can create it. Oh, it didn't do it on this one. Oh, it's in here somewhere. I haven't used it in a while. But when you go in to do film and video, right here. Did it do it? Oh, it actually will put the title safes in there for you. I don't know why it's not doing it here. Free templates. It should have title safes in there. View all presets. Yeah, normally it has title safes in video and whatnot. Yeah, not in there. Huh. Not in the latest version. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. Same thing when you go new document over here. You have different things at the top that you can choose from. Like film and video, 1920 by 1080. Ah, this one's got title safes in it. See these little guides that automatically put in there? It's got your title safe. So you don't want to put your text beyond that thing. Like if I go in here and say, grab me out of there, put me in there, and then we'll grab background photo, that in there. I'm just copying it between documents just by dragging it from one document to another. There we go. So we got all of that. We'll adjust our layering. Over here, we'll take me, do something like that. Now, when I'm putting the text in, if it's going to go in a video, sometimes people's devices cut off the edges. And that's especially in the old days. Not as much nowadays, but these are called title safes. So you want to make sure that any text that you do is within these guides. The photos, you can put it way off the side. That's okay. I would still take your photo and make sure that you are thinking in this corner here. Like, right, if you're thinking this should be your final one. And I'm just going to crop it. See, that's how it's really going to look. Right, and then the other part out here is also called the bleed, by the way, in printing. You usually run the stuff off the page so that it doesn't have like a white edge if the press is moving. You would run it along the edge, and then when it cuts it, you would cut it perfect down the edge. But these are title safes, and so you definitely want to make sure you have it within that grid. And so that's in Photoshop, and I wonder if it does it in GIMP here. Let's go see. I don't think I've ever tried. I seriously doubt it. Color space. No. No. Maybe a template. Let's see. Full HD. Right here. Okay. No. Again, those are the things you did. But you can actually go in and figure it out. You can figure out how far your title space is. Just put a ruler in there. Right? Put a ruler that way. A ruler this way. And just figure out how far in that your title safes are normally at. You can't see them, everybody, but I can. There are a bunch of guides that are in there. Let's zoom in. Plus and minus. There it is. You can see I put a guide edge there. This tells me where that title safe is. So you can figure all that out, or you can have programs that do it for you. Right here. So again, you can't do title safes in there as well. Again, we could talk about this forever, everybody, but I think that's enough. Let's go ahead and get on the Kismet Love Train and head on out of here. All right, everybody, I'm a man of my word. I say I'm going to do a graphic design stream, and now you guys are in the know. You know about different shapes and sizes and lines and patterns. You know about typography. You know about layout. You know about proximity of objects to each other. You know about white space, and that's all you need. That's what you need to get started. Of course, there's tons and tons of videos out there on the concepts of design. Learn the concepts first, program second, right? Because then all of a sudden you go, okay, what do I need? I need a circle. How do I do a circle? Oh, okay, there's a circle tool. Easy. Okay, how do I make a gradient? How do I make a blend between one side and the other? Okay, where's my gradient or blend tool? Okay, there's my gradient tool. Okay, cool. That's the easy part. The hard part is actually coming up with the ideas, like my love trade here. Coming up with this idea that I'm over here in a booth, and then I've got my social media down there, I've got my little trade down there, I've got my thing over there, I've got a rotating thing like a screen that's going in the background. Concepts are the most fun thing. And then, you know, my fluorescent sign up above here that I made, and you guys here in the chat, all of that kind of fun stuff. So let's go ahead and show some love in there. First, I want you guys to go ahead and do me a favor. Go ahead and pop on over those social medias. Show some love over there on YouTube. If you are watching this on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe button right down there. It helps support the stream. You can hit the like button, leave a little comment down there, ring that bell. It does help tremendously here in the stream. Go over, pop over to YouTube as well. For those of you on other platforms, youtube.com/KismetBP. Hit that subscribe over there. Check out the Twitter. Go over there, hit follow, check out the Discord, check out the website, and especially if you enjoyed this or you want to see more of these in the future, show some love over on patreon.com/Kismet. That helps support all of this stuff and allows me to do all of these kind of cool streams and bonus streams here as well. Yes. Thank you for the educational session, Kismet. I enjoyed it. You're welcome, Lord Winter. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. I hope you learned something awesome. I will be back Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for some more fun. Let's roll our thing out there. Let's get our schedule up here. Right over here, we'll be doing some Alpha 21 with my crew at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to try to get a bonus stream in with some city skylines. I've got a bunch of other things lined up for next week as well. We'll see if we get those to come in and whatnot. Man, there's so many things going on at the same time in this stream, everybody. I got so much stuff going on. But we're going to roll on out of here. And you know what I'm going to do after this? I'm going to go do some graphic design for a whole bunch of stuff I got coming up next week. There you go. I'm going to go do that, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and shower you guys with a bunch of love. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Now, I suggest to everybody that you find a nice, quiet place where you can do your design, and then you get into the zone, right? You just get into it, and you just keep iterating on your design over and over and over until you get it somewhat what you like. And then you go from there, right? You go from there and say, how could I make this better? How could I make it simpler? How could I convey the same idea with less things, right? With less text, with less circles and objects and you know, animations and borders and all that stuff. How can I convey it with the minimal amount of items as well? Minimizing stuff makes for better design, I find. I find for sure. All right, everybody, I'm rolling out of here. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate all these peeps and appreciate all my patrons right down there at the bottom. And again, we'll see you guys Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye, everybody.
Hi, this is Norbert. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button. We'll see you all next time. Bye.